Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia.
I told you the weeks go fast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's greatest podcast. I said it. I'm your host, Dagster Moriarty. It's good to see you today. Look at these three menches I have aboard today. Absolute menches. Let's go around and meet them. Shall we say hello? First, now, for those who don't know, this fella, along with his lovely wife, my best friend and his gal, and my family, we formed the cool kids table at Colin and Micah's wedding. I don't know how many people know that, but we got to spend some serious time together at the event. And sorry to Dustin and everybody else, but this was the cool kids table. Hoeg, Mr. Hoeg, everybody. Good to see you, my friend.
It's good to see you. I actually think that Colin's wedding was the first time that I had interacted with you, because I don't think we had taped anything together before then.
No. Wait, did we do, we did Alan Wake together. The first game, was that for Sacred Plus? And I don't know if that was before or after the wedding. It was close though. Yeah,
we did talk about Alan Wake 1. I don't know whether it was before or after either.
You're right though. It was pretty close, like within weeks of that wedding on either side. I'm not sure. But it's good to have you, man. You're one of the guys I rarely get to see. You know, you're one of the less frequent guests, so it's always nice to have you aboard.
I'm trying to change that. Colin's going to be sick of me by the time I make enough appearances here.
Get out.
And look at this other guy, Dust. I was just thinking of this, my friend, as we go around for intros. This is usually the time of year I'm getting excited because if all goes to plan, like our normal years, I'm going to see you in a couple of months. Actually get to hang out with you for the day. So
that's right.
Good to see you, dude. How you been?
It's good to see you. That's a good reminder. I need to submit for too many games. It's usually about this time that I do submit for a panel or whatever. So thanks for. I needed that reminder. But yeah, it's good to see you. Good to see, of course, Colin and Hoeg as well. Just the boys for this episode. I mean, let's be honest. It's normally the boys on pretty much any episode we do, except for when Mike is here, which that's fine. You know, we like that variety, but it's nice to sit down with a couple friends on a Friday afternoon. I've got fresh coffee ready. Just ate lunch. Kind of a lackluster lunch, though. It was just peanut butter sandwich.
Okay. Peanut butter sandwich, straight up.
Well, sometimes what happens is I'm not hungry around noon or 12:30, but I have to eat before we record at 1, or else I'm going to die during the show. I will.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting. You're like Micah, where it's like, I've never been so hungry. I'm like, I have to eat.
During the course of this podcast, I will. Absolutely.
So strange.
It's going to be a marathon. It's going to be like 4 hours.
Yeah, I see it as an energy level thing, right? Like I didn't have much before the show either. I had a bowl of sliced apples, but my wife will tell you that I'm most likely to eat at about 2. That's in the middle of the show. So I have to get something in me in order to have the energy to go through a constellation with y'all.
Yeah, bowl of apples. Eating
Can
like
I make
rabbit
a bold
in a
suggestion?
patch.
Colin's not going to like this because he doesn't like chewing sounds.
Oh my God.
But why don't we, these Zoom recorders have a mute button. Why? And it's 4 people talking. So we're going in turns anyway. Why not advocate for having a little snack during the podcast? The only caveat being hit the mute button out of, why? Why? Because I don't
mind if people. I think eating on podcasts is really weird, but if you mute it, I mean that would be necessary. You know, I mean these are marathon things. I am, because I'm married to someone who like has to eat like she's like a hummingbird, right? And it's crazy how like she's just the same weight the entire time I've known her. And she actually doesn't eat very much like volume. She just eats a lot during the day. I guess that's normal. But to me, I'm like, dude, I couldn't imagine not being nauseous half the day, which is the way I usually feel. Like I couldn't even imagine. It makes me want to throw up thinking about eating right now. Give it like 6 or 7 hours and I'll definitely be there. But yeah, for right now, I'm golden.
There's something about the tiny girls. They do eat like that. Helene's the same way. She just eats throughout the day. You would think she would weigh, 500 pounds. But Kyle, you're on the opposite end of the spectrum because you eat like a snake. It's like you could just eat like, you know what I mean? Like, or like a spider.
Yeah, I eat like one rat and then I digest it. Yeah. That's the way it goes. That's the way that's the way I've leaned into it. You know?
Okay. Yeah. Everybody's different. Mine's changing. I'm getting so old now that my eating habits are changing. I'm taking a page out of Dustin's book where I might not be hungry at noon, but I know it's imminent. And if we're we're going into this marathon recording, I should probably eat something. Whereas 10 years ago, when I was Colin's age, I was much more like Colin. I wouldn't get hungry until later in the day. So just wait till you're old enough and you'll start going through the changes.
I'm telling you, I'd be 500 pounds if I didn't do this. So
I feel the same way. Dust. And the other thing I wanted to say to you now, Dustin, Furman fans won't like this idea, but I'm just going to put it out there. Let me posit this. For too many games, maybe we just go and just be present without doing a panel. You know what I mean? If you're not feeling, I'm always down for a panel and meeting some people. People come from far away. They're the best.
I hear you like rolling into your panel right when it begins.
Oh, that was glorious. That was glorious.
I'm sure Dustin was thrilled about that.
Ben was actually really it was actually a mess because I've been to too many games so many times, like an hour from my house outside of Philly in Oaks, Pennsylvania. And literally I've been there dozens of times. And for some reason I got lost driving there. I don't know what happened. Something, you know what I mean? I just took a wrong turn, went way out of my way. And I was like, holy shit, like I'm in Exeter or something. Like, how did I get so far from here? So that's what happened. But I made it. Yeah, I walked onto the dais like as introductions were happening. Like it couldn't have been any closer. But it turned out to it was a pretty good feeling. I was like a baby face walking up, you know what I mean? Like getting ready to meet the heel in the ring.
Yeah, it reminds me, you'll like this, Dig. When I played travel hockey, Dad brought me to a game in Concord, New Hampshire. And I was in 8th grade. And I remember this so well because it's so weird. He was like, do you know, because Mom used to bring me to all the games, like around New England or whatever, and in Canada and stuff like that. So Dad didn't really go to any of these places. He's like, do you know where this place is? And I'm like, yeah, just go to Concord, like go up the highway to Concord and we'll get there. And then when we got there, I was like, yeah, I really don't even remember how to get to this place. And we had to like pull over and ask someone how to get to the arena. Every town in New Hampshire has an arena, so people know where it is. And then I rolled in when the Zamboni was on the ice, like before we were about to go on, and the team was like freaked out because I'm the goalie. And I remember the whole thing so well because I busted in. Everyone's like, "Oh my god!" Like we thought we were going to have to forfeit.
They would never. You were never. Yeah. It was you. People were never happy to see you in their entire life.
Yeah, I know. Like that. It was, and you want to allay everyone's fears. And what I remember about that game, 1-1 tie, 1-1 tie, very low scoring affair. So I thought you'd appreciate that. Yeah, just riding by the seat of your pants, getting lost. Thinking I know how to get somewhere. Very weird.
Forget it. That was pre like Garmin GPS. You know, now there's no. What was my excuse in 2024? You know what I mean? Like I could have just put them.
Mental retardation.
Actually.
So Dust, just keep that in mind. You know what I mean?
Here, I'm trying. No, I'm just going to put this out there to add public pressure. Trying to get Brad to come out.
Yeah.
See, I'm going out to see him at the beginning of that month.
Oh.
So I think it's only fair.
You guys are dating?
Yeah, we got a little long distance thing going on. But I feel like it's only fair that he comes out. And I think people would be really happy to see him over here on the East Coast. So Brad,
he comes to see you a month after you see him. He is going to be coming out.
Oh yeah.
That is very romantic.
It is.
Yeah.
But people, look, I mean, we know, Brad. It would be a draw. You get some more fannies in the seats. He shouldn't be so selfish.
Yeah.
Right? Think about that, Brad.
Just stop doing these things. You just go and enjoy yourself. You don't have to.
That's what I'm saying. Can we just do that?
You can do whatever you want.
Meet up. Hey guys, you're fans of Last Stand Media. You love the shows.
Come meet us in this alcove somewhere and take pictures with us.
That's true.
Yeah. Right.
That's true.
Do what you want. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me.
But I do like getting in for free. That is nice.
I was going to say that is kind of a
that's a nice perk.
Big benefit.
Huge.
And two, I think that the audience that does come to these panels, if we didn't do one, and then the number one question they're going to ask every time they see it at the show is like, why aren't you guys doing a panel? whole time.
Yeah,
and it's only like it's
true.
like 2 hours out of one of 3 days at most. So
after PAX pulled Chris's and my panel in 2018 or 2019 and canceled it on us.
Yeah,
that's how we met.
That's right.
Oh.
I was like, nope, never doing that again. So you can blame them for the fact that you'll never ever 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 see me at any one of these shows ever again.
No Colin at shows, and you have to deal with Hoeg.
Yeah.
Thanks to PAX.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah, but you're carpet bombing everybody. Not everybody. They're all unaffiliated. Why are you blaming Long Island Expo or too many games?
Long Island Expo. Oh my goodness. We can go back and talk about a Long Island Expo icon.
No, but now there's Long Island Gaming Expo, which is quickly becoming.
But isn't that? I thought that was the replacement for Icon. They're different.
Oh, I don't. You know what? I don't know.
Dagan and I used to go to a show called Icon in the 90s, which was like, this was when going to comic shows was like.
Oh, it was huge.
But like, it was like real nerdy. Real nerdy. And that was the first time I ever played PlayStation 2. Was a Japanese one in a Street Fighter EX tournament. And that's the story. And that's the story that PJ always tells is like, I beat this dude who was like this grown ass adult and he like punched the wall and left.
That's awesome.
And I was in like 10th grade or something like that. Or let's see, it would have been 11th grade, probably going into 11th grade. I love that.
Yeah,
that's so
he
funny.
had that effect on people. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. It was
amazing.
So good.
He's still alive, actually. The competitive like arcade play and his flamboyance walking into an arcade.
Are you a sore winner, Colin?
No, I'm not. I'm not a. I think that one of my good attributes is that I am not a sore loser and I am not a gloating winner. Because I've been on winning teams and I've been on fucking. We talk about Dagan and I. Knockback comes up every once in a while. My high school hockey team was fucking horrible. I won like 3 games the entire time.
It'll put some humility in you.
Yeah, it puts in, especially because I came from like these really high end travel teams, and then I played on this high school team. I fucking sucked. And so, yeah, it puts some humility in you really quick because you're never going to win. Like, going into the game, you're not winning. And going into the season, you might not win any games. And you look at the standings, like they used to write the standings out and by hand on like the boards. And there used to be like this huge wall at the arena for all the different leagues. And you just go to the top and you just go, boop, right to the bottom. And there you are, the 21st team or whatever, 0, 18 and 1 or whatever the fuck it is. It was great.
That'll teach you to be gracious when you do win.
Yeah. Goals for 11, goals against 170 or whatever the fuck it was. I was like, oh, good. We're doing great. I hate sore losers.
Oh, it's bad.
Hate it.
And you know what's funny? I have 2 teenagers. They play various sports. I never see bad behavior with the kids and have rarely seen it since they were little. They're good winners. They're good losers. But it's some of the parents still that have those traits and show those behaviors once in a while. Not everybody, but sometimes it's I never see it with the kids, but there's a select group of parents that just behave badly, whether it's, winning or losing. That's surprising to me because obviously they're not handing it down to the kids. The kids are pretty well behaved, pretty polite. So that's an interesting observation. And not, again, not a lot, but enough to notice. And in the various sports, I've seen it in baseball, soccer, and basketball. And dance and competitive dance.
Oh, yeah.
Which is interesting. Dance moms, that's a real thing. You heard of soccer moms.
Dance moms, cousins of theater parents.
Theaters.
Theater.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that's about it, guys. I'm looking for Kyle, you'll appreciate this. My daughter, she's going, my oldest, she's 18. She's leaving for college in August. She's going to Miami. Super proud of her. But now she's going through the thing of like on social media, when you accept university, you're starting to meet people in these forums for the school. And now she's trying to vet roommates. They're trying to vet each other, who wants to room with who and stuff.
Oh,
like
interesting.
It's really cool that you get to do that on social media now. You could feel somebody out, get in touch, DM. If you get, if you build enough of a rapport, you're exchanging phone calls and stuff. So it's pretty neat. She met a girl from Long Island. It doesn't surprise me. Long Island has a lot of people, right? It's a very populated place. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. She's like, where are you from again, Dad? I want to tell her. And I told her. I said, where is she from on Long Island? Long Island's a big place. Okay. You need to understand that. I'm like, don't tell me. Show me a picture of her. I'm going to tell you exactly where she's from. Shows me a picture of her in no frames. I'm like, that girl's from Islip, which is like center of the island, South Shore. day later, she's like, Dad, you remember? I said, yeah, where's she from? She's from West Islip. I fucking nailed it.
Yeah, that's excellent.
I nailed it.
That's excellent.
Isn't that? I mean, now I want to do this all the time because I think I could be 10 for 10. Just give me 10.
You're trying to judging their aesthetic, like how Jewish are you? How Italian are you? Where can we best frame you on the island?
The setting and the clothes.
Seaford, no, you're not Jewish enough. Albertson, you're not Italian enough.
It's a vibe.
Yeah.
It's a very specific
just a vibe.
Carnival trick.
Yeah. And it's been years. I mean, I moved out of Long Island when I was 20 and I went back briefly, so it's been 30 some odd years. So I've just retained that sort of provincial radar. And it's a vibe. I mean, I think the picture of her was on a beach somewhere, like on vacation in Cancun or something. It's like I'm looking at the person. I'm not looking at the setting. You know what I mean? I'm not. So I couldn't even cheat. There was no telltale sign of a bakery in the background. None of that shit. I just know. I could have looked at her first of all and said that girl's from Long Island, and then let me go even more molecular. I'll tell you what she did it. So I'm 1 for 1.
Do you know Declan, our nephew, his roommate in college at Virginia Tech is from Long Island too?
Yeah, he was saying that, and everybody tells me that here in suburban Philadelphia. I met my first Long Islander in college. Everybody says the same thing, no matter where they went to school. A lot of them went to Penn State, but out here. But everybody says the same thing. That's where I met my first person from Long Island. They were my college roommate. Every person says the same thing.
And I was that for a few people too.
You were.
Yeah. I was on the other side of the coin. But when I went away to college, you just got who you got. Mm-hmm. That first year. After that, then you set things up with people.
Oh, there was no survey? I remember filling out a survey. What kind of music do you like?
There might have been that.
Hobbies.
There might have been that's true. There was something like that. Like, do you like to sleep in? Do you like all these things? I don't think they were reading any of those things. My roommate, my freshman year, was a fucking disaster.
Mine was too.
And I actually had multiple roommates my freshman year. So I've said this before and I'm comfortable talking about it now. And I'm not making fun of the person at all. It was a horrible situation. Dagan knows is my roommate freshman year was suicidal. And I walked in on him just cutting himself one day, cutting the shit out of himself. And then I was like, oh, God, I got to narc you, I guess. And in my mind, I didn't say that to him. Obviously, I'm like, I don't want to get involved in your life, man. And so I told the RA or whatever. And then he was from New Jersey. He actually went home. And so for the rest of the semester, I had no roommate. But he came back to get his shit with his parents, and his father hugged me and told me I saved his son's life.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
And I was like, okay, I mean, that's cool. He was not very nice to me, though, that kid. In hindsight, it's I'm glad everything worked out, but I'm like, you weren't a very nice person. And then Dave, that's when I got a kid from Doylestown, this guy, James West, who played for Northeastern's football team. Oh. And he was also annoyed me a lot, but he was much nicer. He wasn't really doing anything wrong. He was just snored a lot. And the other guy snored too, which I wanted to fucking kill him. And I've said before, he used to take this protein powder that smelled like maple syrup. And so it made everything in the room smell like maple syrup. When I'd walk out of the place, I'd be like, and eventually I'm like, dude, you got to get rid of this shit. You got to, you're making all my shit stink. Smell like fucking IHOP. So
those giant tubs, those giant peanut butter. They look like a peanut butter container, but they're huge.
Yeah, it's huge, just huge thing. In his closet, we each had the little closet next to your bed in your freshman dorm. And it wasn't until I was a sophomore that I got to choose. Ramon lived down the hall from me in that building, and our other friends, Chris and Kevin, all lived around us. And then the four of us lived together for the rest of college, basically. Or for a couple of years after that. And I met some other people too, but. Actually, when I was a junior, I moved in kind of blind. But this was when you lived in apartments. So you each had your own room kind of. Right. And that wasn't really a big deal. And then I did that my senior year too. But freshman year is rough going the blind route because you're together. Yeah. I couldn't even tell you the people I lived with when I was a senior. I couldn't even tell you their names. I don't even remember. I have no idea. They were really nice people. I remember one of them was from Rhode Island. He's the only person I ever met that is a Rhode Island pride person. He had the big Hope flag on his wall.
Nice. Okay.
Which was their state flag. And I remember that really well about him. He also had a PSP before I had one, but I don't remember his name.
It was really a long time ago.
Yeah. And
freshman year is a crapshoot.
Oh man.
I'm really got my fingers crossed for her because she's going to be far away.
You're surrounded by the people you're going to be the girl I ended up dating was down the hall, and you're just kind of put into this random geolocation, and you can kind of do whatever you want, but you're kind of going to be centralized around these people at least for 1 year.
Yeah, I met Mrs. Hoeg my first day of college.
Oh, interesting.
That was essentially a random assignment because we were in the same like orientation group.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. Oh, wait. So did you do orientation when you got there? I remember I had to go to Northeastern for orientation and then leave. And then I came back like the next month or something like that.
Oh.
No, our orientation week was like the week before classes started.
That makes a whole lot more sense.
That makes more sense. Yeah. Because you're down there then.
Because it was basically, I think the whole idea is like, come live here for like a few days and like, so you're not intimidated by this urban sprawl of it. Because the campus is fucking huge and it's all in a city. It's like just built into a city. It's like, oh, this is our building. This isn't our building. This is our building. And it's like,
sure.
You know, and I think, you know, it was a lot. So I think they did that. But yeah, and thinking back on it, I don't remember almost anything from that trip. In fact, I remember not wanting to go and it was mandatory. And the reason I didn't want to go was because I was like, I kind of grew up around here. My mom went to Northeastern and teaches at and like works at Northeastern. It's like,
you knew it a little bit.
Yeah. Already. I was like, I'm not trying to be a dickhead, but I don't really need to do this.
Can you give me a pass?
Yeah. And they were like, no, you got to go. And I was like, all right. So that was that.
It's an adventure though. God, to be 18 again. I don't know. It must be scary though. It's a different age, but at least the kids could get to know each other a little bit it's one of the positives of social media, right? Get to know each other. You get the opportunity to know each other and feel somebody out before you get down there. I don't know. Maybe
That's
helps.
Cool.
Maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
I think that's really cool. I mean, there's like so many advantages to that, to find your person or whatever.
Yeah.
It's too bad she doesn't know someone locally. I mean, it's going to be very infinitesimal probably, but like someone locally that's actually going there at the same time.
Yeah. I think 3 or 4 people from her high school are going.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of people applied, but I think it came down to 3 or 4 getting in. Yeah. She knows 3, I think.
Actually, my friend the year before I graduated high school went to Northeastern, Casey. And then I went, and then we didn't have anyone for like a couple of years. And then someone was there, and I think I ran into them or bumped into them. I'm like, oh, welcome. I'm not that Colin anymore.
What would you do now?
No, I was just because you get to reinvent yourself a little bit. And
like, sure, yeah, that's true.
But I really didn't do that. Like Derek, our brother-in-law, always tells the stories about how hardcore he reinvented himself for college because he was like, I just don't have to be this person anymore. And I love that about that. But Lil doesn't have that problem because she's already cool. She's cool. I suspect your daughter is like one of the cool kids. I think that's fairly obvious.
Oh, I don't. You know what? No, like one of the more popular kids.
Yeah.
No, she's probably somewhere in the middle with that.
Oh, that's fascinating. She strikes me as like one of the cool kids.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't even know what that is anymore, but that's not the sense I get. I mean, my wife's got boots on the ground, but she's in the high school.
Oh yeah. So she'll have a good idea of
So she knows more about this, but no, she's got her circle of friends and all that kind of thing. And she's very smart. You know what I mean? She's also creative. So she kind of toes the line between and she's a dancer. So I think she has her foot in a lot of different worlds, but I don't think she's like going to be homecoming queen or anything like that.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. Is she still with her boyfriend?
Yeah.
And where is he going to go?
He's going to University of Vermont.
Oh man.
And she'll be in Miami.
Are they going to try to stay together?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the plan right now.
So I don't want to get involved.
It's funny. It's actually funny. Like, no, I mean, getting a consensus is great. Like, I love hearing people's opinions. Everybody in the family has one.
It's not my business. It's like her business ultimately. That's what I'm saying. It's like, who cares what I have to say? I just think I think it's fucking crazy to go to.
It's a difficult go. Yeah.
I think it's crazy to go to college not single. Like to me, I'm like, that's crazy. Like crazy.
But they don't know it yet.
Yeah.
They have no perspective.
And I told Declan, our nephew, this because he went to college with his girlfriend and they went, dated in high school and they went to the same college.
Yes.
And I'm like, I've said this before. I know one person that did this. My friend Doug, good buddy of mine. It was one of the guys I lived with blindly, actually, who I actually did get along with. And I was in his wedding later and stuff like that. And he's been with his girlfriend, now wife, since they were in middle school. Like, and they had just straight up just been together forever. Like forever. And I'm like, but that's the only person I knew.
It's an anomaly.
Like, because I knew plenty of people that rolled into college with girlfriends and boyfriends.
Yeah.
Plenty.
Oh, yeah.
Plenty. That was the only person I knew that even survived college. Nonetheless, went on. So I was like, I told him that I'm like, it's cool, man, do this, but like, you don't want to get involved in people like these young people. You just know as an adult now, you just understand things better. And you're like, dude, this is not your last stop. You might as well live it up. I mean, I'm a prude. Like, I'm not even crazy about that sort of thing. And to me, I'm like, dude, like the fucking world is your oyster, man. Like, I remember,
100%.
Like, it's, like
it's not even like a thing. It's not even a physical thing or a romantic thing. It's just a thing of like to be unattached and
totally,
unencumbered.
exactly. Yeah.
Just so
it's not even a sexual, because I'm like I said, I'm a prude. Like, it wasn't even really a sexual thing for me. It was like, yeah, I could just do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Like, why would I ever walk into that situation? But yeah, they don't
know
love and all that kind of stuff. But so she's got to do what she's got to do. But, we all know how that's going to pan out.
The perspective sets in when the perspective sets it. Yeah. I mean, I think they're two smart kids. I mean, I wasn't nearly as smart when I was their age, when I was 18, going on 18. I think they know in their heart of hearts that the odds are stacked against them, but you're giving it the old college try. Sure. No pun, right?
Yeah. Literally. Yeah.
How is it going to pan out? Yeah. But it is interesting to hear everybody's perspective. My mother-in-law oddly is so gung-ho for this kid. He grew up in the same, he's from the same town where Helene grew up. You know what I mean? Like, he's a nice kid. He comes from a nice family. And she's so like, it's so interesting to hear her perspective because she's so gung-ho for them staying together. And it's interesting to see where everybody falls in that argument, because I couldn't even have predicted where each person weighs in with that. So it's been really fun to get everybody's kind of 2 cents on the situation. And yeah, the funny thing is, I was just saying this to Helene, I'm not sure if 4 or 5 months is just too far out when you're 18. Like, it just hasn't dawned on them yet. But Lily is not stressing about it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, whatever,
there's nothing really too stressed about. They'll find their way. I just think, yeah, it's knowing what college is. And I don't mean it in any disrespectful way. College is essentially freedom. And if I made a big mistake in college, it was like pining over a girl. And
I did the same thing.
It's like come on, man. Like it's like those little pieces of wisdom you want. It's like you could have just had so much. And again, it's not wasted. It's from a prudish angle, but it's like you could have just had more fun. You could have just you could have not had done all this. And that's the advice I gave to Deck when he went to college. Was not like I like his girlfriend a lot actually, but like, should just be like, this is going to be a new thing, man. Like, you really, it really is I remember being so shocked by the freedom of college that it kind of disabled me in the beginning. Where I was like, wow, I really could just do whatever the fuck I want. Like, there's no one watching me. There's nothing happening. I can not go to class. I could go to class. I could study. I can not study. I can go do drugs. I can go drink.
Yeah.
I can go whatever.
It's freedom, rags to riches. Especially when you're living under your parents' roof and then you're going from like, oh, wait, I could just do what I want. I mean, you can.
And she's going to Miami. It's like, come on, man.
I know. There's also, I mean, not to talk about this to death, but there's also like definitely clear writing on the wall about them as individuals. Like, they love each other, but he's moving to Vermont because he's like a hardcore snowboarder and she hates the cold. That's why she wants to go somewhere and loves the beach. It's like, maybe start to consider these things that are very like will spell out your relationship, but again, they're figuring it,
Yeah. She needs like some, Latino Miami dude, and he needs like some snow bunny, like that's okay.
To each his own. Hey, listen, I'll keep you posted. We'll see how it goes.
Now I want to be on the update Constellation. I'm too invested now. I come at it a little bit differently from Colin insofar as I don't have any issue with somebody giving it that run, bringing in a significant other into the college environment. I don't think that's wrong necessarily. And I think adults kind of coming in and telling people how likely it is for them to fail tends to harden opposition to that situation from the teenager. So I don't have a problem with the attempt as long as everybody's aware of, it's got C-3PO in the corner telling them it's not altogether likely that this is going to go the distance.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And it's true that like no one could tell me anything when I was 18.
That is true of a lot of 18-year-olds.
And I would listen to you, but I'd be like, yeah, all right, whatever. I mean, do you have any idea how many people tried to intervene in all the different situations in my life? And I reflect about this with our dad, especially where like slowly throughout my life, I'm like, oh my God, every single thing. He was right about everything he said. Like every piece of advice was right.
Yeah.
Every swing in my life, what he called it and was just like, this is what you're going to feel now. And this is what you're going to feel later and stuff. It's like, because I'm not even sure if it's insight, because he's obviously a very smart and insightful person. It's more like that's just human nature. Like I look at 40 years old, I'm like, damn, dude, I just know so much more now. I just totally am much more metered and centered than I was when I was fucking 18 or 20 and I didn't know shit.
That comes with age.
Yeah, man. You can only get, that is literally the wisdom. You know?
Yeah, that's experience.
And I'm anti-authoritarian, anti-institutional by nature. And my wife is so thrilled that I've passed that along to our kids. But yes, I would be so inclined to do the opposite of whatever the advice was, especially as a teenager.
Dude, that's my daughter, Rick. And I love the Star Wars analogy because she'd be Han Solo, never tell me the odds. Like that, just because that's her personality.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's taking it as a challenge, right?
Yeah, absolutely taking
advice.
it as a challenge. But as long as you have the understanding that it's a difficult thing you're trying to do, then it doesn't kill you if it doesn't go your way.
Yeah, it reminds me of, it's like people coming to my life and be like, this woman doesn't really care about you. And I'll be like, I'll show you. You know? This woman,
yeah, that's hard.
This woman these girls don't really care about you. They're not interested in you. Is that right? Well, let me spend 5 years.
This thing, whatever it is, whether it's a relationship or otherwise, this thing is not going to work. It's like, well, it will if I have anything to say about it.
Right.
But you don't.
You don't. And you, Rick, somebody like you, see, I'm less stubborn and more inclined to listen. I'm also a coward. But somebody who had courage like you and my daughter, you know what I mean? What she's doing, what they're kind of going into now, takes courage. You know what I mean? At least they're willing to give it a shot. You could dismiss it as stupidity or naivety, whatever, but you know, they're doing it, right? But the other thing that Colin's saying is people seeing from the outside what you can't see, especially at that age. I remember Colin had this kind of relationship early in college too. I did too. Met this girl. She ended up going to college in Manhattan. We were together for a while, a couple of years. I went to school in Philly, so we were going to do the long distance thing. My Uncle John, his dad, Mr. Brasino, we went out to dinner one night all together. My girlfriend was with us. It's the first time he ever met my girlfriend. Now, I saw this man, Mr. Brasino, my Uncle John's dad, twice a year, maybe, right? Never saw this guy, barely knew him.
He was a nice guy.
Awesome guy.
Yeah.
Very charismatic, very friendly, but
very
I didn't
Italian.
know him that well. Yeah. He pulled me aside after that dinner at the restaurant and was just like, you shouldn't. This girl's trouble. In not so many words.
The pull aside is always.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I thought it was weird. But he saw something. Even somebody who didn't know me that well. He saw something. He was old at that point, too. Like, he was in his 70s. He lived to his 90s.
Yeah, he died not so long ago.
Not that long ago.
Yeah.
But somebody who was like, you know, somebody who I loved, his dad, like somebody, you know, removed a couple of levels from me, saw something, actually tried to tell me. I thought it was strange that it was coming from him. And, you know, and the other thing was I didn't see it. Right. But there is that thing. Now, I don't see anything like that with my daughter's boyfriend. Thank God.
Yeah, these people are dating such nicer people than I was involved with. Where I'm like, oh, these are actually nice people.
100%.
You know? Like, what the fuck?
You got to learn for yourself, though.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing. Like, you have to develop that perspective, the experience. You have to accrue the wisdom. I can't do it for them. You know, I can't do it for her. She's got to do it.
And it's so complicated with family relationships, right? I've had this issue with like my siblings, where you look at that relationship and go, oh, I'm not sure about that one, to people you really, really care about. It's like, well, I can't push too hard on that because they'll just shut me off. But this seems like a bad road to go down. And unfortunately it was. And you just have to live that out with whoever you care about. And I feel so much for my parents in retrospect, because they were so aware of my anti-authoritarian tendencies that I can now look at those conversations that were uncomfortable, that were pull-asides, as, okay, this is like my dad trying to tell me something in a gentle enough way that I might hear something of the words that he is saying. But I remember how that felt at the time. And it's such a complicated relationship that I really do give credit to my parents. And I hope that if my kids get into any situation where they need a pull aside, I can be as gracious.
Yeah, that's good parenting. And that is tricky because you want to be in their ear, but ultimately you're relinquishing the decision to them because they're young adults now. You know, the only upside to all this is and making those mistakes, like the one I'm talking about with the girl that I wasted 3 years on or whatever, is like, hopefully you come out of that having a better radar.
Oh,
right?
You definitely
now,
do.
Going into the next time, a little better about the warning signs, whatever it is, that type of thing.
Yeah, totally. You totally, I mean, you'll make other mistakes. Sometimes they're even worse. Trust me. But you'll never make the same mistake. Right.
That's it. I always tell my kids that about everything. Just don't make the same mistake twice, if at all possible, because the mistakes are inevitable. Right. So, yeah, we'll see. It's an adventure. I feel ultimately, where I come down on this, I don't feel old enough to have a kid going to college. I know I am. I look in the mirror sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, you look like you're 65.
You really don't. You look like you're younger than you are.
I know, but in my opinion, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's right.
There are
you don't look 65.
I'll take it. I got 14 years to get to 65 if I make it to 65. Jesus Christ. All right, listen. We got some good topics today. I didn't know exactly where I wanted to start, but Hoeg, I think I'm going to stay with you. I like your topic a lot. I like it for an icebreaker. If you don't mind, kick it over to you for topic one.
No, my style of presenting questions to the group is to ask 600 variations of what my topic is going to be so that I can keep the conversation flowing and that nobody knows where I'm coming from at any given time.
Hold on a second. Hoeg, real quick. Dustin, I'm keeping the footnotes so you don't have to worry.
Okay.
I can see you do.
There's sometimes there and sometimes not. That's why I was like, I'm just going to double check.
Yeah, okay.
Or double write them.
Sorry. I'm sorry, Hoeg. I just didn't
not at all. No, you're keeping time, right?
Yeah.
I always fail at that in any of my long form shows. So I respect the structure here. You guys are always taking notes, always being on top of things. But my topic is one that I've wanted to bring up in Constellation for a long time. I think people who have seen any of my appearances here know that I care very, very deeply about story and storytelling. That this is really one of the things that made me such a big fan of video games early on. I've talked about my history with Final Fantasy and particularly Final Fantasy 4 and 6. And teaching me that video games were a medium that could tell really impactful stories. And I want to talk to you all about that as part of this conversation. But first and foremost, I want to ask everybody, what is their favorite medium for having stories conveyed? Because in these conversations, when we talk about video games, which is obviously what we do most of the time here, I often get comments or commentary back to me that says, well, you're emphasizing story or narrative too much in games. It's really about gameplay or other things. And you should go read a book. You should go watch a movie. You should go watch TV. And the way I look at these things is that there are many different great ways to tell stories, and they all have their various strengths and weaknesses. I see books as being where the imagination lives, where it's all in your head, so you can have really wild stuff in book form that maybe wouldn't translate into visual or audio or other forms. And so I really like books for that purpose. TV at this point with serialized storytelling and streaming media, I see is really the way to get into deep character studies. Long form character pieces really work in television, but the mystery box format that was popularized by J.J. Abrams and others really does cost my love of TV somewhat, because I watched something like Severance, which I did not enjoy as much as somebody like Gene Park. And I get to the end of that and say, I'm not so sure that there's anything in that mystery box. And when you don't trust the storyteller, you don't trust the creator, you start to not like the beats on the way there. And so I have issues with TV, but I do think TV has really great ability to tell story. But I prefer my TV now to be essentially based on books, because I know that there is some kind of ending. George R.R. Martin notwithstanding.
Yeah, I was going to say, you think so. You'd think
yes,
so.
Indeed. Video games, I absolutely love, because I think that interactivity, that beat that says, if the princess is in that castle, you have to go get her, puts more investment in the story for the player than just a passive watcher of movies or TV or even a reader of books. But I don't agree with folks that look solely for choice making, for the branching narrative, the Western RPG style. I feel like the plot threads in stories are often lost when you get to choose every direction that they go. And I'm always searching for what might be the most compelling story that the writers would have put before me in that nested tree of story beats. So I have my issues with video games, but at the same time, I love that you having to put in that effort to fight the bad guys, to get through the skill check, whatever it might be, gives you that investment in the story itself. So I still do love video games. I don't think that like the best writers in the world are working in video games as a general rule. But I do think that investment in player agency gets you to a higher level of emotional resonance for me personally than the other mediums do, even though I love them as well. And that's my little narrative starter for this conversation. So what do you guys think?
Where do you want to start, Hoeg?
Let's start with you, Dagan.
Okay. When you sent this topic, I have two answers. One might be one's more conventional, and one might be a little bit too much of a departure. You could tell me. My favorite, when I sat down to really think about this, thought, all right, I love all of the ways we get our stories. I love all the different mediums for different reasons. And they probably should all be celebrated for what they're kind of, what each is great at, their attributes. So you have novels, you have games, you have the TV series. If I had a conventional answer, though, I would say I think you have to give movies, feature films, a special nod just because they're special in that you're tasked with crafting a story within that very specific time constraint. I think it takes us very special, ability to be able to tell a story within 2 or 3 hours, tell a concise story, construct a narrative, have your character arcs, all of those things. My favorite means of storytelling, though, I have to say, and this could just be being an old man, is just the good old fashioned sitting around the table, having a casual conversation with friends or family, the old way, before cameras, before doing it for a podcast, which I love. Don't get me wrong, but just the, sort of friends, family gathered around the table, preferably with food and or drink, and maybe just, or huddled around the bar or gathered in the kitchen or out on the patio, just people having a conversation, catching up with old friends, telling stories.
Sure.
You know what's funny about that? Colin's mimicking one of my grandparents, one of their dear friends, grew up across that they had the house across the street from our grandma and grandpa. It was those people. It was our grandma and grandpa and their circle of friends that I guess I responded when I was a kid, in that I loved being around the adults because I loved hearing them talk, right? Definitely. I loved the humor. I loved the banter.
I loved the banter. It's so good.
Hearing when they were younger. It could have been a story from a week ago or when they were kids growing up in Brooklyn. The way they all related to each other, the way they enjoyed each other. I loved hearing them talk as a kid. I wasn't sure why. Then I was older. I was like, wow, no, I was just around these amazing storytellers. And it wasn't performative. It was a one-time thing. There was no cameras rolling. There was no audio. There was no mics. It occurred to me, that generation, like the greatest generation, I'm Gen X, grew up with the baby boomers. Their parents were the greatest, right? I'm talking about those people. And that was the last generation that grew up without television. Now, they had television by the time they were adults, but they didn't grow up with it. That was and I think that's why they learned to appreciate and participate in that sort of the way they lived their lives. They just loved to hang out, converse, tell stories, entertain each other, make each other laugh. And I don't know that I'm a great storyteller, but I know I love a great storyteller. So I grew up to appreciate people like whoever, Spielberg, right? Because they're the consummate storyteller. Now, and you listen to Steven Spielberg in an interview, he'll tell a great story. He's just a great storyteller. It doesn't matter if it's on film and he's behind the camera or he's in front of the mic telling you about the making of Jurassic Park. He's just a great storyteller. So, and I think that's what it started with me, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, and their sort of their orbit, their group of friends and family that just growing up listening to the way they sort of acted with each other, week in and week out. And I loved it. Even as a kid, it wasn't that I didn't want to go play with the kids. I always wanted to remain in earshot after dinner when they were huddled around having anisette or coffee or whatever, because those conversations and the humor and I could learn a little bit more about my grandpa when he was a kid, because he wasn't sitting me down telling me stories. I had to listen. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting. How they met, or a baseball game they snuck into at Dodger Stadium, whatever it was. So that's my favorite. But if I had to give it a nod to the conventional, I love everything. I love reading books. I love video games as a storytelling format. I think we're just scratching the surface with video games because it's so much newer. And I love the TV series because you could let a story breathe. You could be episodic. You could do cliffhangers. There's a lot of benefit to that. But movies are always special to me because I think it really takes a special skill set. And it takes it also takes a continent. I mean, forget about it. I mean, it takes such a group of people collaborating to be able to pull that off and only do it within, an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours tops. I think that's a really neat skill set that I don't even know if I have that, to be that concise, to be able to do it, to be able to have the discipline for editing and, make it streamlined. I think I would give it to feature films above the other ones.
There was a time in my life where I would have like a knee-jerk rejection of that I was so looking forward to serialized storytelling from TV. Like I remember watching the X-Files in the 90s and being so excited about the lore episodes that I would be disappointed when that week's episode was a monster of the week. And I'm saying, this is the future of storytelling. We're going to get all of these long-form character and plot-based stories. But now in 2025, I have such respect for the conciseness and the elegance and the efficiency of the emotions that a 90-minute, 2 hour, 2.5 hour experience can elicit over what sometimes becomes a shaggy dog story, especially for the streaming outlets that are trying to keep you subscribed, where they'll take a movie premise and they'll make it an 8 or 10 hour long concept, and you don't get a lot in any given week. So I think I agree with you, Dagan, that movies are the thing that I relate to most and most often as a storytelling device, even when they maybe aren't as great as I would like them to be so often. So I think that's a great answer. And I had not even thought of essentially the art of conversation as storytelling. I thought you were going to go into Homeric epic poetry there for a second, but I could not agree with you more on, I remember you've opened up memories for me of being around the corner, listening into the Hoeg family poker game and hearing all these stories from the aunts and uncles and the grandparents. And yeah, there's something special about imagining your older generations that are so impactful to you as something like your age and dealing with the world in that capacity. And I love that. I love that answer. I will totally allow it. I know we're nice. A little concerned that I might not. I think that's a great answer for storytelling because that's, of course, where it originated, right? We tell stories. The reason I love them so much is that they unlock the human experience. You get to live through so many different perspectives. And yes, that can be great with bombast and movies and special effects and script writers and all the thousands of people that help to put that on screen for you. But it might be even better on a more daily basis to just listen to your parents or grandparents talk about their lives and realize that those are real. So I love that answer. Colin.
Isn't it a shame, right? Like podcasting didn't come along like 30 years earlier while we still had that generation, because they were just, to a person, like, it's amazing how talented they were at that. And it might have had nothing to do with what they did for a living or how they took a salary or what they did ultimately for a job. But usually didn't. They just happened to have that latent skill. And it's amazing. I really wish I could mic up my grandparents when they were younger and have all those stories, because, and I wonder if they would even be able to do it knowing they were being recorded. I wonder if that would change anything, because it was just such a natural thing. It wasn't put on, right? It wasn't for anything. It was going to be said once to like 8 people, and then that was going to be it. It was going to disappear into the ether. There's something very special about that.
Yeah.
It was very time and place, and, it wasn't going to be recorded for prosperity. So I wonder about that, but it would have been nice. I would have loved it, because I feel like, again, like just scratching the surface, there were so many things about those people that I didn't know, that I'll go to my grave not knowing, because we don't have them anymore. So
it is funny whenever a news story comes up and you're like, what, Dad? Yeah, no, absolutely. Colin, what's your favorite medium for storytelling?
Games probably would be the greatest medium for me, just because I feel like you can get it in so many different ways, and it can be as surreal and unusual as the player can handle. And I feel like there are really not ways to confer the written word like that, or even other mediums in some sense, maybe more TV and movies, but I don't think even that, because I don't think the TV and movie audience has the patience for the level of surrealism and strangeness that video games can bring to storytelling and how good that is. For instance, something like Lynch and what he was doing on TV in the late 80s and early 90s was deeply niche and was not really well respected at all. And then you see that transfer to something like Alan Wake, and it seems much more relevant there than it would be in TV. So I think that there's something interesting about that. I wanted to give a shout out to books. I mean, I was a prodigious reader at one point in my life. To say that I am anymore would be a total lie, because I'm not. I'm really like more of a seasonal reader now, where summer's coming and once the pool's open, and I literally just go out in the pool and float around for hours and just read. And so I'll carve through like 10 books in the summer, or 8 books or whatever, some short things like about sports, and then, some random political thing or whatever, and then like a couple novels or whatever. And then I just won't read again for the rest of the year at this point over the last few years. So the one thing that I wanted to note about books that I'm fascinated by, and I've always been fascinated by this, is what you were saying, Hoeg, about like the inner vision of having to kind of perceive everything yourself through just what is written there. It's very unique when you think about it. It's like, it's very strange when you think about like a novel. It's like you're just reading the sequential words of an idea that they hope you visualize and enjoy. It's I don't know. It's obviously a natural analog to like oral storytelling, but I'm fascinated by it. And one of the things I wanted to bring up was just how much I love the stubbornness of the vision of what you perceive and how it remains with you, or at least it does for me. So a good, like, when I read The Hunger Games, the first one, before I ever saw the movie, I saw it in a certain way. And even though I saw the movie and I think the movie's actually pretty good, I still see it the other way, and I'll never forget the way I see it. And that's the way it is for a lot of novels or a lot of books. And so it's not that you're necessarily interpreting things, but that for me, like, the interpretation is permanent, actually.
Yeah, I'm the same way with Dune. Dune was a very influential book series for me when I was younger. And the movies, the Denis Villeneuve movies, are definitely not my Dune. I love those movies. I really do. But that is not how Dune looks to me. And yes, I can totally relate to, you saw it differently in your mind's eye.
As far as other things are concerned, I mean, I just thought I would give a shout out to other unique storytelling mediums that I've enjoyed in the past. D&D, I think, is a really, and just general paper and pencil role-playing games, dice role-playing games are really effective ways of telling stories. And that they tie in, I think, pretty intimately in the visuals to books, where you see certain elements of things a certain way, certain campaigns a certain way, whatever. And that was something that I really loved doing when I was younger, especially. And then I even like war games, like board games. If you play Axis and Allies or Shogun or something like that, which are like awesome games, there's like a bit of a story around it. Even like Risk, you can kind of visualize some sort of storytelling. We don't really play them for those purposes. People might remember when I lived in San Francisco, I was in an annual Risk tournament that had like a physical trophy and everything. It was awesome. And let's see.
Let the record show I did not bring up board games first.
Yeah, no.
If I could included Lemon Inc. on this email, I would have had, please somebody mention board games on this topic, because just like Dagan was saying with regard to the efficiency of movies, I am so in love with board game designers having to figure out how to convey ideas, including stories, with just a simple amount of rules and a simple amount of actual physical materials. There is a game series that I adore that is a solo game, so I really think it equates well to people that play video games in this solo environment already, called Final Girl, which is essentially you play one of these women that survives a horror movie experience. And you have to try to get all the victims that you can out of the way of a killer, and you have to defeat this killer. And it's through the use of cards and a small physical board conveys so much of the narrative of now these, I think, 36 movies, or maybe a little bit less, like Alien and Friday the 13th and Quiet Place and all these various other kind of horror genres, with just these simple rule sets that every single time I play it, I feel like I have lived a story. much like the best video games that are out there. And I think board games are a fantastic pull, Colin, for storytelling devices that we don't usually think of.
Yeah.
Because honestly, you're thinking about competition or even cooperative gameplay, but every good one of those, in my experience, is telling some kind of story, right? The best board games are ones where later on, 2 weeks from now or at a later dinner, you're talking about that experience you had where somebody went into a room and accidentally blew up and you had to drag them out and whatever else your game is doing. And having those experiences is a collective storytelling experience like a D&D or like those epic poems we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, it's not to say that they're always good stories or meaningful stories. It's just storytelling. I mean, when you think about the scuttlebutt around the table, like Dagan was talking about with people talking, it's like most of that shit is useless too, but it is just the act of doing it, I guess, which is fun. I did want to also reaffirm that the whole TV thing where I barely watch TV at all anymore. Like I usually have a show going or something like that in my life. In the last few years, I'm like, I don't watch anything. I really don't. I think the last thing we watched, Mike and I watched together, was The Gilded Age, which Mrs. Hoeg loves too. And I love my period pieces, and that show is immaculate. That show is awesome. And it's not to say that there's not good TV out there. It's just becoming so dicey, in my opinion, that
it's high risk.
Yeah, it's like a lot of it is because we can, we will kind of storytelling. And it's like you're saying, really not respecting. It goes both ways, where I really got tired on Netflix of them just canceling shit. And I was like, well, I'm not doing this anymore.
They're notorious for
and
that.
Then on the other side of it, that's why I loved on Barry, which is a great show on HBO. There's that whole arc where they make fun of this woman's show getting canceled like before it even airs, basically, because like the algorithm didn't like it and all this. And it's like this dead up serious thing that they're trying to pull on her. And I just feel like Lost is an interesting example because that really is the impetus for this kind of television. Battlestar in some way was contemporary to that, and a few other things. And the major difference between those two shows, in my opinion, is Battlestar Galactica fucking ended, and it knew where it was going, and it stopped after 4 seasons and a couple of interstitial movies. And Lost, I feel like, just meandered so badly, and had like, by the time I remember getting to the last season, being like, I don't even really give a shit anymore. Like, what are we doing? Like, how long is this going to go? Why we wanted longer storytelling than film? That's great. And we were getting these films where there were even like intermissions in them. I always think of Gods and Generals, right? There was like literally an intermission when you saw the person. Yeah. And it's like, all right, this is getting maximally long. The double cassette releases like Braveheart and shit. Yeah. And Heat and all that. And it's like, okay, so we're getting to this point. It's like, all right, so we've had enough. So we want more than this, but we don't want this much. Or at least I don't. That was another great thing about the show Turn, which is a show I watched all the way through finally, after watching like the first couple seasons over and over again. And it's a very Colin show. It's in the American Revolution. But I was like, this is great. Really, this is great. It's 40 episodes. Perfect. So that's the thing where at TV, I'm like, it's too dicey and hit or miss. And I'm really dismayed by the attitude I think the streaming services have towards the medium at this point, where a lot of it is, what was that quote that was going around purportedly from some Netflix exec where they were saying like, we want to make TV that you just don't pay attention to, basically is what they were saying. Did you guys see that quote where it was, yes, it was something like, people want to lean in and watch TV. We want like the exact opposite. Yep. And I was like, what? It's very strange. That doesn't make any sense. Like what, like, how can you say something like that? And not get fired? I'm like, well, I don't have a Netflix account, but it's like, I did watch NFL for like 1 month. Oh, that's right. They have that now. But yeah. So TV was like, at one point, it really burned bright for a minute. It really did. Yeah. I mean, Breaking Bad and Mad Men, and I mean, there's a shit ton of things that were great, and there still are great things. But it's just so diluted, not unlike video games. And I just have less patience for it than I do the medium of video games, because there's such better payoffs with video games. Yeah, there's just more crap to sort through. I mean, and we can't forget too, like before the subscription services, I love what Hoeg said before about artificially stretching things and turning them into series to pad out these subscription services and the myriad of, everybody has one and that sort of thing. It is nice. And it started with the miniseries, right? In the 70s and 80s before subscriptions, where it was like, okay, if you have a movie essentially or something cinematic that you need to let breathe longer than a theatrical release, now we have the option to stretch it out over episodes. And there was all that sort of the color, like Roots and stuff. Roots,
was a great example.
I loved The Stand back then. I loved one a little later on called The 10th Kingdom. They did a good job with miniseries.
That was a huge one. But now, you're in this era where there is just a lot of crap. And you made a good point about something else very early on, Hoeg, Severance, which Dustin actually turned me on to, and I love. And my wife,
I don't mind anybody loving it. It does not hit me. I just don't trust them from where they ended season 2.
It's the trust thing.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. Although I'm loving it, it's like things like that. You could say this. Colin brought up David Lynch and Twin Peaks and everything like too, but this is something even different in that it gets so heady and so surreal, and the stakes get so high, especially with the cliffhanger and, ultimately what's going on at the base, at the foundation of this thing. It's like, how good can this idea be? And how can they know what it is? You get awfully suspicious that they're making it up as they go along, because it's like, how brilliant of a resolution can you have? So I feel, although I'm loving it, and I really am loving it, and Helene's absolutely addicted to it.
It's very well produced.
It's beautifully done, but there is that sort of mistrust at the base of things where it's like, I'm very guarded now, because it's like, I feel like I'm being set up to be let down. You feel like
you're scarred. I've been through the wars. I've seen some JJ shows. I don't trust you right now. You have to get some trust back.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a while.
Not to turn this into Severance podcast again, because I've already done that on at least one other
I said the word. It's my fault.
I feel like, Dag, though, with the reason I still trust, I still believe in Severance is it does suck when the writers or whatever, when it gets to the point, like, are you making this up as you go? Do we have a sequel Star Wars trilogy situation going on where we're just kind of flying by? I feel like with Severance, and this kind of connects to overall the topic about storytelling, is what I love about it is that as season 2 released, there were so many things that connected to season 1 in a way that was like, oh shit, they really did know a lot of this stuff. And they hinted at it here literally 3 years ago. So I'm not saying everything has been perfect with Severance season 2, but to me, that's the telltale sign of like, okay, there's clearly intention here. There's clearly things that maybe they're not fully written out word for word dialogue, but there are things that they planned, that they hinted at 3 years ago, that they are following up on. Are they opening up too many doors at the same time? Potentially. I think that's maybe my problem, but
I think the best writers, the ones that are really skilled, can backfill that stuff somewhat. So, right, even if you see some connections, I do think that you can make it seem like it was more intentional than it really was. Colin pointed out Battlestar did better than Lost on the storytelling. I would argue that they're pretty much in the same ballpark. Battlestar famously started with the Cylons have a plan every episode, and if you go and backfill what the Cylons' plan must have been through what actually happens in those seasons of Battlestar, you will quickly find that the writers definitely did not have the Cylons with a plan over any long period of time. Mm-hmm. I like the ending of Battlestar. I like the ending of Lost to some extent. But some of that is good writers figuring out how to make this thing work, taking the pieces of equipment that were dumped on the table like Apollo 13 and putting together something that might make sense to someone. And unfortunately with Lost, I feel like they did a little bit worse job than Battlestar did. You could really feel what I often describe as the puppet strings of, we need these things to be true. We need these people to have these motivations and to be in this geographic place. And so you can feel the writers moving them when it doesn't make sense. And for Severance, I like a lot of pieces of Severance. My favorite part of Severance is that they took this relatively simple idea of the severance procedure, and instead of just saying this is what exists and we're going to have just character drama, we're going to just have plot arcs, they instead said, what are the 600 different ways we can think about this and how it would actually impact these people or the people around them or the company? And I love that. That's why I like sci-fi to begin with, is take this idea and let's analyze the multitude of ways this would actually impact society. I love that piece. And I think they're on top of that. I think they're on top of their character beats. I'm not as convinced on whatever the kind of overall thrust of the company and various other things they try to tease out. I don't feel that right now. And I'm worried, having watched the progression of season 2, that that's the end game. That's the long-term thing that they want to look at.
Yeah.
I think it could be the greatest payoff in science fiction ever. That's the thing. And you know what? On the other side, I think this group of people have definitely earned trust in that, Ben Stiller down to the writers, the episodic directors, every actor to a person in the show. Like, would people of this caliber let something out into the ether that's anything but excellent? I doubt it. You know what I mean? Like, it's fixing for, if you look at the people and the quality of what they produced so far and the quality of the show and also their body of work coming into this, like, these are top notch people, from stem to stern.
Well, and I don't want to suggest it won't be excellent from a certain point of view. I think it will be. The question I would have is whether it will be satisfying from a narrative point of view. And that's one of the things I want to talk about after we talk about mediums here. And I still want to get Dustin's answer on that, is the nature of plot versus character and logic versus dream logic. Because I want to talk about a quote I saw from Mike White of The White Lotus after this, because I think I come from things on a little bit more analytic, a little bit more logic focused place, but not everybody has to be there. And those are different ways to appreciate stories. But before we talk about that, Dustin, what's the best way to tell a story, man?
In listening to you guys go through a lot of this, I was realizing that my favorite way to tell a story is also potentially my least favorite. Because I was thinking, like, initially my answer was like, well, I really like long form TV, where I think about, you guys mentioned, of course, Sopranos, Mad Men, the highly character driven dramas and just character driven shows in general. At the same time, you guys are also mentioning where we're in an era now where things are just bloated for content's sake. So it's like, I hate that at the same time. So in a way, it's like, well, this is my ideal story. A way a story is told is very long in general, is what I've learned to realize, both in TV, movies, and games. I think about probably my favorite films of all time which they're based on a book, so it only half counts, but Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings extended edition is 10 hours long or something like that.
At least, yeah.
And I love that because you spend so much time with these characters that by the end, you are so deeply invested in what happens to them. And sorry to take this off the rails, but it's also why I love One Piece, is that the length is something that puts off so many people. And I totally get that. And I think that in most scenarios, a 20-minute show that runs over 1,000 episodes over 20, 25 years, I can't remember, a very long time. It's like, how? And they're not perfect. One Piece definitely not perfect in terms of pacing. There's filler episodes, stuff like that. But it comes back to what I was saying earlier about Severance, is that what amazes me about the show so much is how much in 1996 Oda had planned out. And it's clear. And it's like, wow, you sat on this idea for decades, but you planted the seed, and through this, years long process, if you are invested, the payoff is there. And I absolutely love that kind of stuff. And I think that's something that does draw me to games as well. I think games, though, in some ways can be more like, when it hits, it really hits. But I think they have a tendency to be more hit and miss for the same reasons we said earlier about like shows that are extended for content's sake, like something on Netflix or whatever, where I've definitely played games that have great stories that are just too fucking long, or they meander in order to get more gameplay out of the game, right? And Hoeg, I totally agree too that the industry's obsession, and I think this has died down over the last decade or so, but the obsession with choice-based narrative, I am kind of over in most situations. I think about some games that did it really well, mostly like Mass Effect or something, where it's like there are decisions that have material consequences that if you make in the first game is going to carry with you all the way into the third game. Towards the end, I don't know if they really nailed the landing, and I'm not a Mass Effect 3 ending hater, but in some ways it didn't quite meet the mark, I would say. So I'm much more of a fan of this is the story we have, and I hate it when it's like, man, there's these few decisions at the very end of the game that are going to give me 4 different end sequences just based on this one little thing, you know? That bothers me. Like I'm so obsessed with canon in story in video games that when I boot up Persona 5 or a JRPG that you can name your character, I will go and look up what the canon character name is.
Me too.
I like it when they're filled in.
Yeah. I will always do that.
I did that with, we talked about doing that with Metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. I do that anytime I possibly can. So I think though, I guess on the flip side of that, with storytelling in games and choice, I think about a game like Baldur's Gate 3 that I'm like, man, okay, obviously it's insanely tough to do. And it took them years to make that game and years in early access to make that game. But that's where I'm like, okay, there is a place for narrative choice in games that can be truly spectacular, where everyone has a different experience with Baldur's Gate 3. Everybody. To the point where it's like, man, you did this thing in this game. I have no idea what you're talking about at all. Like, I didn't even know that was possible. So there is that as well. But yeah, just going back to the long form thing, I think that with both movies, TV, and games, it always comes down to the investment in the characters throughout a long journey. Because even my favorite films are pretty much all long movies. I think of like Blade Runner 2049. That's plus 3 hours. Recently, Oppenheimer, 3 hours. And even that, it's funny that's like in context of all movies, it's a very long movie, but it almost feels short with how well it's paced. And sometimes even like you want more out of it. So I definitely like long form. I like the character investment, but I guess you'll primarily find that in TV and games the best. It's not to say I don't like short stuff too. There are some stories that are so impactful that are short that I feel like that's probably the toughest thing to crack. I think about games like What Remains of Edith Finch has such an impactful story that can be played in one sitting. It's like, man, I don't even know how you pull something like that off. I guess the last thing to touch on too with games being such an incredible medium for storytelling, and I know one of you touched on this, is just how when you are putting in that level of interactivity, I don't know what it is, but it does enrich the experience of the story. I've mentioned this before, probably on Sacred maybe 10 times, because we get asked about like favorite games, favorite storytelling, whatever. But I always think about the game Undertale and how that game, I guess I would say it changed my life in some ways, in simply the way it told a story about empathy and putting yourself in someone else's shoes and how you can view the world that way. And I think if there was an Undertale animated show or something like that, it wouldn't do that. Like it wouldn't have that same impact. It was only through the medium of video games and the interaction. And that too, even though I kind of dissed on it earlier, some of the choices that were done in a way that I thought was good really enriches that experience for the user. So that was a lot in a bunch of, I don't know how to cap it off at this point, but
no, I couldn't agree more. I love that answer. I love all of your answers. I would just double up on that talking about games, because one thing that I think I skipped a little bit when I was introducing this topic is the gameplay itself, right? Even when it's not talking about narrative, one of the things I like about that interactivity is it can put you in the shoes of the character. It can make you invest in the progress of whatever story the game is telling in a different way. I love, and I know it's divisive, Death Stranding. And one of the reasons I love it is because as gameplay, it tries to convey the arduousness of the task of getting over that next mountain, of connecting people across the country. And unlike a passive narrative, a movie, a television show, whatever it might be, the danger, the difficulty, maybe for some people on the internet, even the boredom of the activity is part of the relief that you get, the joy, whatever you want to characterize it at, of actually making that connection, getting that next piece of formal cinematography, formal storytelling, whatever it might be, that you've invested in that and earned it in a way that you wouldn't in a passive medium. I feel the same way about things like The Last of Us, right? The arduousness of the levels is part of the storytelling, that it's going to be really hard to get past these bandits and you only have a brick and no bullets or whatever it might be. And getting past them and earning that CGI is a part of telling a story through video games. I love that. I have always loved that. I think that is massively to their credit. I wish more games and more game designers would think about the gameplay and how it can inform the narrative that they're telling separately from just here's where the cutscene launches, here's the next story beat, here's the dialogue box, here's the entry in your lore codex or the entry in your diary or whatever it might be. I think gaming is still nascent. It's still a baby as a medium, has a lot of growing that it can do, a lot of space to get even better at storytelling. And I hope it continues to go down that road.
The one thing that I do get disappointed in with video games, and it's something that it's been really hard to get away from, I think, is the destructive or even violent nature of video games. And I don't mean that by like in the prudish way of like, I don't want to kill anything. I fucking love killing shit in video games. I mean, I've been doing it my entire life. It's awesome. Dagan and I used to play GTA 3 and like fucking cackle like hyenas. The shit we were doing, it was so funny.
Of course.
You know, we knew all the passwords by heart to give us all the crazy weapons and health and whatever and just go fucking ham. I think it's hysterical. But there's always been this conflict in me in it's not even about non-violence. It's like we have to broaden like how games work, which is why I've been such a supporter of walking simulators and why I really hate people's cynicism about them, because I'm like, this is something different. Like, why do we have to continue to interact with games or act like there's something about the action, let's call it the action of a game, that matters most to it? And I'm like, that matters a lot in a lot of games, but it doesn't need to be the only thing that matters. And so I've become somewhat cynical about it over time, because I was even wondering this, and I didn't really know how to put it into words when I was a kid. It's like everything is Mario stomping on a Goomba, Kid Icarus is shooting an arrow into the Medusa head, you know, Samus is shooting the alien, Link is slashing the enemy with a sword. It's like, what are we doing? Like, why does the brick and break, or the ball and breakout destroys the brick? We're trying to eliminate the Tetris blocks. The Space Invader ship is shooting the alien heads. Like,
all right, the Tetris blocks might be a stretch, but I totally jive.
Well,
with
I'm
what
talking
you're
about.
saying
I'm trying to.
otherwise.
I brought that up, and I tried to bring Breakout out too, about just more about what I'm saying about not necessarily violence, but action. Right? Like there's some, and we would call that mechanical or mechanics, right? And that there has to be a game to play, like a piece on the board.
Yeah, I think there has to be an adversary to overcome, a challenge to defeat. Does that have to be shooting everybody sometime?
Yeah,
No.
an adversary. That's again. It's like, yeah, a challenge to defeat.
A goal.
I would think would be good. That's why I'm such a huge fan of Gone Home. I think that game is fucking extraordinary. And it was like, unlike it sticks with me like Fallout 3 does, in the sense that I've like, I've never played anything like this before. And I've played a lot of things like it since that have tried to do it, but it's like, it's never going to be quite this good, I don't think, again, because I had never played anything like this before. And so
one of the things that I think is really resonating with people on the release of Blueprints, which came out yesterday as we tape this, is that it is a walking simulator. It's an escape room simulator. It's a puzzle game, but it's incorporated rogue elements so that you have this kind of overall strategic thought process of how to collect resources and how to go through this particular walking simulator that does add more of that non-action oriented, non-violent strategic thinking, an opposing force, an adversary to overcome, some puzzle to solve that's even meta-contextual in that context. And I think the same way about Balatro last year, which is taking a similar idea a simple idea, poker hands and pattern matching and things like that, and adding this kind of increasing opposition force. You have to get better at doing this. You have to hit bigger and bigger blinds in order to keep playing this game. That is getting to where you're going with your statements, Colin, which is that we can imagine games a different way than just an enemy trying to do the opposite of us.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And so I don't know how we get away from it. The games I make are all action games. So it's like I've been able to get away from it. I play a shit ton of those games. I just am cynical about it at this point. So I'm like, there has to be more to it than this. And this is, on the other hand, games that are predicated around violence are some of my very favorite games. And Dagan and I just did a really long episode of Knockback about The Last of Us Part 2. And it's like, this game is...
It's a great example.
This game is so much better than everything else that it's... In my mind, that it's like, it's crazy how much better it is than almost everything else that's ever been released. And that's all of it, including the combat, which, to your point, plays so well into the tension of the game and the storytelling of the game. And so, I am both a cynic and a user nonetheless.
Yeah, that game just asks a lot of so much more of the player than anything I've personally ever played. I don't mean to change the subject, but Hoeg said escape room. I have to tell you guys this. Did you see the video of the guy trapping the escape room employees in the escape room and then giving them a clue to open the lock? So the guy takes a chain and a combination lock and wires the door shut from the inside and then puts a clipboard through the door. The girl's trying to, he gets it done. He's outside. He slips a clipboard through the door, which is a clue to get out. Dude, it's fucking hilarious.
I did see the video. I didn't look into it any more than that. I didn't know if
I don't know anything that happened.
Now, I'm not your lawyer, viewers, but you might want to look up false imprisonment statutes in your jurisdiction before you go about any of this.
I don't think it's legal, but it is hilarious.
Hoeg, I want to shout out one other video game thing that we haven't touched on that I think is so important as a medium of storytelling. Environmental storytelling, which is, I guess, you can have environmental storytelling in a movie, or it can be described in a book or whatever. But I think it's particularly can be really cool. Again, this is a double-edged sword thing where I think that it can be done really well and not so well in others. And I guess sometimes it's depending on what appeals to you. For example, I'll get this out of the way because this is not going to be a popular take. Bad environmental storytelling, I shouldn't say bad, unappealing environmental storytelling to me is a game like Control. I love Control. I think the world of Control is great. But learning the lore of the world through reading a million documents you find, not appealing at all to me. I mean, I still did some of that because I was curious, but that's kind of where I'm like, man, just write a book.
When I love that game too, and I like reading things in games, and even that was way too much for me in that game. Yeah. And I remember when Chris and I did the spoiler cast for it, I went back and took notes and was like going through the documents. And I think at some point I was like, I can't do this. Like this is fucking crazy. How much shit is in this game? This is too much. On
a contrast, the game that first came to mind was Half-Life 2 and environmental storytelling, and how I don't think Half-Life 2 doesn't even really have cutscenes at all. So something like that, where it's like, man, most of the story is just told through observations of the environment, whether it's people or things going on in different settings. Of course, a game like BioShock comes to mind with environmental storytelling, where sometimes it is pretty in your face. Sometimes it's an audio log, or sometimes you just see the remains of what happened in a setting. You're like, okay,
Happy New Year.
Yeah, I see what happened here, and it's pretty unique. So had to shout that out.
No, that's a great point, Dustin, because I do think that gaming affords that additional immersion and chance at discovery. I love exploration, right? And you cross that bend, or you go in that cave underneath the waterfall, and you find the guy strapped to a chair that was definitely in some kind of plane crash, and you have all these questions, and you get this little story beat that maybe nobody else got, or that nobody got. And that's not the same for books, right? There's nothing you can do. You can't take a magnifying glass to your book and find another section describing the cave on your page if you look really, really carefully. And games do afford that extra bit of discovery and being in that world. I love that. Yeah, that's a great shout out.
It makes it personal. Yeah. You know what's frustrating for me, guys, and this may speak to you. I know Colin's mentioned this before, certainly, and it speaks to what I think it's a direct relation to what Colin said earlier about having different types of games with different flavors and different types of goals. The thing about games, you guys already said it a million times, like it has a built-in advantage in that you're actively participating. You're not just spectating. It's interactive, which makes it in many ways more of an investment and more engrossing.
Yeah, you got to go earn it.
The thing is, there's so many people that there's almost nobody that says, I never watch TV or I never watch a movie, but there's a lot of people out there that say, I never play a video game. That's the frustrating thing for me, in that it is such a great means of entertainment and storytelling and all the other things, that's the vexing part, is that there's so many people that just think it's not for them. And I think what Colin says is directly related, because I think that may be the tipping point for a lot of people, and that maybe there's a little bit more something for everyone as different type of, and this has been happening slowly. Obviously, you guys have already referred to a bunch of them, but there are different types of games, and it is becoming more, especially with third party and indie developers and stuff, doing more inventive things. But
yeah, the indies are doing work on this stuff. Yeah.
How many of your neighbors never play a video game? You know, it just seems like it's by a large consensus of the people dismissed. It's the one, everybody reads a book now and again, or reads a magazine, or, you know what I mean?
Well, what we've described as some of the value in game storytelling is that you have to earn it kind of nature. And there's always going to be a portion of the populace that says, I don't want to earn it. I want to watch it passively. I want to get the bombast of a movie or the long form storytelling of a streaming service. And I want to know that if I put my 40 minutes in, I'm going to get what is hopefully a satisfying story experience. And with games, there's always the possibility you're not getting past that boss, or you're not doing this arduous thing, getting over that mountain in Death Stranding, whatever it might be. And there is an element of risk there. Now, I think there's an element of risk there with every other form of storytelling because of the time investment. I'm acutely aware of time resource spending more than I was when I was younger.
Sure.
And so I still think there's that risk, but other people definitely see it differently. And on that note, we're obviously not going to do all the 400 questions that I submitted to you all today, guys, because you guys are super responsive to this and I love it. I did tease that I had one more topic I wanted to talk about with you all on story today. And then everything else, people can get excited about a story time number 2 with Rick at some point in the future.
Cool.
But right this second, I want to reflect on a quote I saw in an article about The White Lotus season 3. No spoilers. We're not going to talk about any details here. But Mike White, the writer and creator of The White Lotus, was essentially getting angry at people that watched this whole season, got to the finale, and said, well, linearly, because this series doesn't tell their mysteries in order, linearly, there are aspects of that plot that didn't make sense. And Mike White basically came out and said, well, I don't want everybody to be little logic detectives or bound by literal truth here. It's really about the vibes. You just have to enjoy the vibes. And as an analytical guy, right, I'm a lawyer, I look at that and say, no, it can be a mood piece, but the mood only works if that check that you wrote that says this is going to make sense at the end actually can pay out at the end. And unfortunately, I thought this season bounced a lot of checks. But more importantly for our conversation right now, I want to ask how you feel about this. Are you the kind of folks that look at this and say, well, if that breaks logic, it breaks my immersion and I can no longer enjoy the story, like Hoeg? Or are you more like, well, the experience of watching it minute to minute, of enjoying every week, the moods that I got, the vibes that I got, the theorizing I got to do on my subreddit, whatever it might be, was entertaining enough that when I got to the end, the fact that Mike White or whomever maybe didn't dot his I's and cross his T's in the way that I would have preferred doesn't really take away from the entertainment experience that I had. Dagan, I will start with you.
I never heard he said that. And that's interesting because I think that's really a dangerous thing for a showrunner or a creator to say, in that, you know, you're telling your audience how to enjoy something. Like, can you imagine David Lynch doing that? He was the complete opposite. He would never tell you what to think.
Who cares how long a fucking scene is?
I think the only clips of David Lynch I have are that one.
That clip is so fucking good.
I haven't seen the new season of White Lotus, but I love the series, and I love something like that with a loose anchor point. Like, take a diverse group of people staying at a resort, go. You know, you could do anything within those confines.
Oh, I think he's really gifted at giving like the the textures of a real person in the White Lotus seasons. So I'm not trying to take away from this series or the way that he writes it, except for I do have a problem with the people setting up a mystery box and then saying, well, it doesn't really matter what was in the mystery box because didn't we have all this fun on the way? Kind of. But my investment depends on this all makes some amount of sense when we get to the end.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, that's a really weird. It seems dismissive. It seems a little disrespectful of the audience. And I'm a guy that I love vibes. I love something just for the energy or just for the atmosphere. Like I'm all about that. But I think you should be, if you're crafting a show to have a story, and people are kind of there's a certain level of expectation. I'm a big suspension of disbelief guy. I could go along in the name of fun. I don't need a lot of rules. I don't need a lot of tethers or logic or that sort of thing. But yeah, I think, especially when something's already established to be a certain way, I think that almost seems like a guy that's getting a little too big for his britches. That's how
I tend to agree, and I like his work, but it sounds like that. And I wanted to pull up the direct quote from the Hollywood Reporter article. And this is Mike White, showrunner, creator of The White Lotus. Little logic police, really. You can't enjoy the vibe and the emotional arcs because you're so caught up in this isn't a police procedural. This is a rumination type show. And then there's a long ellipses. It makes me want to pull my hair out. Is this how you watch movies and TV? Constant literal police? And it's like, no, I can believe a man can fly. I want to suspend my disbelief, but I want to not have like gaping holes in how somebody acted 3 episodes ago because you told it out of order.
Yeah, no, I could totally understand that point. Hoeg. And I can understand his frustrations. I think vocalizing them, though, and articulating
I respect the honesty because, yes, normally you go through a crisis manager or PR and you don't get anything close to this answer.
It's like a public artistic tantrum. You got to give him, it's ballsy, but it's probably not the smartest thing.
All right. So, Dagan, it sounds like you might be a little bit more sympathetic to loosey-goosey storytelling than I am. That's entirely fair. I think most people are. I do require my entertainment to be a little bit more, this will hold up in a court of law at the end of the day. So how about you, Colin? Literal truth, vibes.
Yeah, no, I think I like literal truth. I'm a lore person more than a character person. I've always been. I'd much rather hear like, this is what happened than like obviously you want to experience things, new characters, but that's what I'm always intrigued by. Like I love the Handmaid's Tale, for instance. I think it's awesome. It's a really, really great show. And the book obviously is kind of the beginning of the show. But what's so interesting to me about it is like the world of it. It's fucking crazy. The characters are obviously amazing, but when they go to Washington, DC, for instance, and the Washington Monument's a huge cross. Now, like they made it a gigantic cross, and I was like, "This is fucking crazy." That tells you so much about this world, cool. And yeah. So I'm big into lore and the logic of that. And like you said, it doesn't really have to make much sense. We were talking about this with The Last of Us recently, this is obviously well known to my audience on Sacred, but it's like I was always of the mind in The Last of Us Part 1 that the Fireflies didn't really know that the cure would be able to be made and it would work, because how the fuck could they? But Neil, it was all the way back at IGN when he did the spoiler cast with us, was like, no, it was going to work. Like it was assumed that it was going to work, and he wrote the story, right? So he would know. Right. And I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. And I've still had it because I'm like, that doesn't really, in my opinion, make any sense. Like, how the fuck could you possibly know that? So I've still, in some sense, tried to sever the writer's intent from my own interpretation of it. And I'm able to do that sometimes, but not when things don't make any sense, like any real logical sense, or they're broken, like the logic is broken. I actually think Mass Effect Andromeda, just the very premise of it is one of those games where it's like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, this is stupid. This shouldn't be happening.
In that case, you're like, I know better than you, even though
I do think the Last of Us conversation is interesting because I do think it surprised Naughty Dog or Neil, and I haven't been in any of these interviews, that people did come up with the kind of what I would call extraneous outside universe answers to a fungal infection can't be solved this way. How could the Fireflies know this, etc.? I do think that the dichotomy at the end of that game was set up to be, this will save the world, but Joel doesn't care.
Right.
And how do you feel about
of course.
that? Right? Like that's what the writers intended. Maybe they weren't elegant enough so that people brought their own explanations, as you just did, Colin, to the party. And I don't think that that's wrong.
Right. Well,
but that's just a bad setup.
Right. I like the setup, but I actually think the story, it makes more sense. It gives it more texture and actually makes it more complicated if they just didn't know. And then you could see Joel's side. Like you could see it as a father and a father figure and all that kind of stuff. But so I feel like they actually, like, that's one situation where I'm like, no, I think it's actually more compelling from every perspective if they actually didn't know. We are in a modern society with all of the finest computers and minds working on these, the greatest ingredients and facilities and all of the rest that they do. And we still don't know how things work and like if they're going to work or not. It's like, there's just no way. It's like, you know, that you couldn't possibly know. And, you know,
it's possible for texture, but from the melodramatic side, like the absolute heightened difference in perspectives on this, I think it's a better story if we absolutely know it's going to save the world and he does what he does anyway, right? Like that's the story of saving your own world rather than the whole world that Neil talks about so often in interviews. And I think it surprised them that people came to this ending with some notions of, well, it wouldn't make sense. And I think they probably should have included some kind of scene where there was a test batch of the blood and it was propagating in the way that suggested that it would save the, like they needed some other beat to make sure that Joel making this decision was exactly the opposite of what the player might have wanted in that moment, because that's part of that gameplay. But I can't tell you you're wrong, Colin. I can't tell anybody's wrong on this stuff, other than the fact that you have teased the death of the author conversation that will probably be in Storytime Part 2 or Part 3, depending on how fast we get through the next 600 questions I have on this. And I love that you personally are experiencing kind of the dichotomy of that entire conversation, which is, I want the writer to have a certain amount of power to tell his own story. Totally makes sense. But also, writers are human beings, and they can make mistakes on what their own story says or how it was conveyed at the end of the day. I often think that this happens with writers or creators in general, where they have a lot of what we might consider the Bible for the show, or the extra notes that they've written that didn't make it into the final book that is in their head, that exists in a certain important way to the writer, to the creator, but it doesn't exist in what you or I experienced as part of the final piece of art. And I think that becomes part of the conversation. I won't expound on that anymore because I've already talked enough. But Dustin, what are your thoughts on linear plots versus vibes?
Yeah, well, I feel like with each story, you know, a movie, a book, whatever, a game, early on, I feel like there's kind of an unsaid contract. Maybe not contract, but an agreement between the storyteller and the viewer, where you are establishing the rule set of the world and what to expect from that. And I've not seen The White Lotus. I literally don't even know what it's about at all, in the slightest.
Rich people on vacation.
Rich people on vacation.
Well
okay.
That's a log line. Yeah.
So I guess the question is like, well, was the unsaid contract, which sometimes if it is something that's unsaid, that there can be a miscommunication between the storyteller and the viewer, was it consistent with earlier in the show, or was it like, oh, we are baiting you with a logical story, we're writing it like that, but then when it's inconvenient, oh, well, what about the vibes, man? You know what I mean?
It's a little bit like that, yeah. It's
hard because you know, you want storytellers. Telling a story is insanely tough, and I'm sure for an hours-long, dozens of hours-long TV show, keeping everything straight, you don't want to necessarily be held to the law you've created 100% of the time. I get that, but I think that for me, it always comes back to, it's like, okay, well, what do I expect of this show? And sorry, there's another One Piece reference coming up here, but a common thing I see in One Piece is that, like, let's say Luffy is running from one point to another in a battle, or he needs to get here. And sometimes I'll see comments online that's like, this show's stupid. He's a stretch man. Why doesn't he stretch his arms out and fling himself like he did in episode whatever? And I'm like, you know what? I don't care about that type of logic for this show. This show has never been that, ever. I mean, it's a fantasy show about pirates that eat mystical fruit that gives them powers. But the show has shown me that it is very dedicated and serious to its lore and the overarching story. And so, and its characters and characters acting in the way that is in line with the plot that has been present. So if a character did something totally out of line that wasn't in line with everything that has been set up, or afterwards that explains why they did it, that's the type of thing that would piss me off. Based on the context of the rules, the unsaid rules that show has laid out. That makes sense. So vibes versus plot, though, for me, I guess it just depends. And because I think about, too, dude, it's not an episode of Constellation unless we shit on Star Wars at least 5 times.
Right.
But I feel like, man, the sequel Star Wars.
Is that legal?
It's just, yeah.
Is that legal?
So much of Force Awakens was setting this up, this contract, I feel like, where it's like, man, we're gonna show you Snoke. We're gonna show you these guys, the Knights of Ren. We're gonna show you this. Imagine how cool this is gonna be as we expand on what this is. And then The Last Jedi, in the name of subverting expectations. It's like, oh yeah, all that stuff we set up. No, that unsaid contract that we kind of built with you in the last movie. Nah, we want Luke drinking alien tit milk. That's what we want to do.
Dustin, you're my spirit animal right now. I love this aside. And yes, as it turns out, for good storytelling, you maybe don't want to change the entirety of your show running back office without a plan between them.
Yes.
And I think that it's not that I'm even necessarily against the subverting of expectations. It's that, is it earned? And that's, I think, where a lot of times it goes wrong. Is it's like, well, we just want this to be surprising because no one will expect it. And that's the exciting part. And it's like, no. I guess the last point I want to make about this, what I find interesting about creators versus viewers, because this is kind of, I have to be insanely vague about this for no spoilers. And I have promised to the audience there will be no spoilers here about Severance. There has been a bit of a conflict about part of the end of this season where I've seen some of the creators push back on a certain thing.
Yes. The theory crafters. Yes.
Yeah. And I've seen it, maybe not completely, but it seems like there's a little bit of annoyance about a certain thought process happening with the end of this. And I'm like, bro, you laid out the mechanics for people to think this. And that's why they think it. So you can kind of go out and say like, well, that's not what we're doing. And that's fine. But it's like, there's a reason why people are thinking that because of what you did earlier in the show. So it is interesting to see that, like, oh, how could people think that? Which I'm not saying they're even that bad. I just get that feeling from some of the post interviews I've seen where I'm like, well, yeah, it's fine that that's not what's happening, but don't be mad or annoyed that that's what people got when that's how that was a carrot on a stick earlier in the season.
And it's part of where the passion came from. I agree. One of the reasons Last Jedi, I think, broke the Star Wars fan base is because there was still all that theory crafting after Force Awakens that you saw through the prequel trilogy. And I would imagine through the original trilogy in whatever form that took before the internet. I don't know. Not that old, folks. But after The Last Jedi and all that subversion and clear separation from whatever JJ might have been thinking up after Force Awakens, it became clear that theory crafting the Disney Star Wars trilogy was a waste of your time. And that really lost the passion, I think, of the Star Wars fan base a lot. Even the ones that maybe didn't hate Last Jedi said, well, it doesn't really make sense to guess as to what this scene might mean in the future because it doesn't mean anything in the future because JJ's reimagining whatever the heck he's reimagining for part 3 or originally Trevorrow. So yes, I think that you are right, Dustin, that you say, I've seen some of those actors' interviews that have been, again, I see why you're being careful. It's not necessarily upsetness as much as frustration that they have to answer this question again and again.
Right.
And yes, you are right that part of the reason this show became as popular as it did, at least on the internet, is because of the success of the theory crafters and the payoffs that the creators gave to that theory crafting as a concept. So yeah, I can understand not loving that frustration in the eyes of some of the people behind the show. But at the end of the day, I really liked what you had to say about, I'm going to call it the accord between the media creator, the storyteller, and the viewer, that there is a kind of unwritten understanding that what we put down here is going to be satisfying at the end of the day. Whether it's satisfying in a linear story or just for vibes is part of what you have to glean from whatever story you're getting told. I will say White Lotus as a show is primarily about really, really well-textured, well-acted characters on vacation in various nice spots that I would imagine Mike White wants to visit. But it is premised in each season by essentially finding a body or other bad thing.
Right.
And then that's a flash forward. You flash back to actually get the week on vacation. And so you're tracking the things that might lead to that body and what small snippets of information you got from what Lost might call a flash forward. So there is an active kind of something bad is going to happen. What is that bad thing? Who's going to do what to whom? And playing along in a kind of murder mystery type setting with that show. Is it perfect even in season 1 on logic? I wouldn't say so. No, it is much better at texture and vibes. So Mike White's right there. But you can't just ignore the entire concept of this storytelling. And I think that's where he gets in a little trouble. So I like vibes. And I think White Lotus is maybe the best in the business right this moment at those vibes. But I still think you have to reach what is impliedly promised in that accord.
Yeah, I think promise is the right word, Hoeg. I think that's even the biggest layman in the audience, right? Like people expect authenticity, they expect consistency. I think that's all that people are looking for, even if they can't articulate it. That's what people expect. You know, I'm the same way. I love atmosphere, give me character, give me settings. I'm a big fan of under-explaining. Don't give me a little mystery. End it with the question marks. I don't care about any of that. Just don't tell me it's mapped out when it isn't. And don't tell me it's not mapped out when it's severely mapped out. You know what I mean? Like set the tone and then go along and stay consistent, develop. And then you kind of have to deliver. That's the hard thing. You can't wake up in the morning and be like, I'm going to create a different painting. This is already an established thing. That's the discipline. And I think something with White Lotus, it's very interesting because I think that's all people are replying to with something like that. That's all they're responding to really is that that's what's been set up. And now that's what you have to deliver upon. And then there's some wiggle room within those parameters, but even still, you know what I mean? I've pitched things. I could talk about this now because it's never going to happen. I won't say who I pitched it to. You guys know Usagi Yojimbo, right? The spin-off of Ninja Turtles with like the samurai rabbit from the 80s, Stan Sakai's comic book. I do now. I pitched a big network on the Usagi Yojimbo series, which has never happened. And the whole thing was based on atmosphere. Like 90% of it was like, it's going to be very 70s, analog. I want like the album scratching on the music. I want it to be very Shaw Brothers Kung Fu, film grain. You know what I mean? Like that was the whole thing. Was like, it's going to be a look and feel. It's going to feel like an old Bruce Lee movie, a Kung Fu movie, Channel 9 Kung Fu movie, complete with that kind of music, the funk music. It's going to have those urban vibes. So it's fine. And you know what? If I got that show, I would have assembled my team and I would have delivered on that promise. It wasn't going to be this philosophical doctrine or anything like that. It was just going to be a very kind of fun, very much based on aesthetics. And, a look and feel. So I'm all about that. But, you could operate in both capacities. You would have never went into Twin Peaks knowing David Lynch, right? If you've seen Eraserhead and you saw Blue Velvet and you knew David Lynch had a TV series, you would expect it to be the same thing, just an episodic version of one of his feature films, which is what it was, right? So if and I'm not saying this guy has the body of work of a David Lynch, but so he doesn't have that kind of notoriety. People don't know what to expect, like a David Lynch, like an auteur. But I'm saying, you know what I mean? So and David Lynch never over delivered. He never under delivered. He just did his thing. Right. And, I think it's probably really tough. I don't envy this guy. I think dealing with the public, creating something, putting it out into the world and then having to deal with the public is probably really hard. You know what I mean?
Just at Last Stand or Virtual Legality or anywhere else. Like, you have to put a little bit of your soul into anything that's going to be put out there for public consumption.
Sure.
I don't know if everybody gets that as part of this. And I think people can oversell just how traumatic that is. You say, well, okay, you guys are rich and you're Twitch streamers or whatever. And I just think it is important to understand that, yes, the act of creating is a somewhat brave endeavor. Mm-hmm. Not us as David Lynch, not us as even Mike White, but that you go out there, you put your soul out there. And yeah, sometimes it's going to pop out in a Hollywood Reporter article that you're maybe a little bit angry at the way that your creation is being treated. And hopefully it doesn't hurt your career. I think Mike White is one of the more gifted, textured writers that we have right now. But I do think you can't just say your story is on vibes to the Hollywood Reporter when it's in the context of a lot of people saying, as you rightly said, Dagan, not necessarily articulating the reasons, but that ending, that season was unsatisfying for reasons that I don't necessarily know how to convey to you, but it didn't satisfy me. And that's not me attacking you, Mr. White. It's just the truth.
And Don Draper said it best, Mr. White. That's what the money is for.
That's what my old boss used to say at the law firm. It's like, it's what you get paid for is how bad this job is. But no, gentlemen, I really appreciate it. I don't even want to know the timestamps. And I apologize in advance for dominating the conversation so long. But I will save the rest of my story questions for another time. And I thank you so much for all the insight.
Hey, that's the making of a good topic. That's the making of a good topic. That's something to be proud of, Hoeg. All right, my friends. That was fun. By the way, I have to say, Hoeg, that Final Girl game looks amazing.
I love it to death. Could not recommend it more.
Is it only single? Is it single player only?
Single player only. It's not a cooperative game that you can play single. It's designed for one player. It is really unique in the board game space. I'm not a solo gamer when it comes to board games. This has basically changed my mind.
It looks amazing. The like visual, the packaging, the illustrations. It looks amazing. It looks really, really good. I'm into it.
Absolutely. Check it out.
Topic number 2. We're going to go right to Dustin's. He has a super fun one. I'll say no more. I'll let him launch into it. Love it.
Okay. So when I in my email, I was like, I don't know how to put this into like one quick topic name. So we're going to have to figure that out as we go for the titling of this. But my question was, a lot of time people think about, well, what would I do with my money if I won the lottery? If I had a billion or millions of dollars, whatever. I love the meme of, it's like something ridiculous, like, I don't know, a water fountain, like Mr. Deeds, like a water fountain that has fruit punch in it or something. And it's like, I wouldn't tell anyone if I won the lottery, but there would be signs, right? So my question to you guys, I asked, what 5 unreasonable things would you buy if you had hundreds of millions of dollars? I didn't know whether to say unlimited money or millions of dollars, whatever. But I think you guys hopefully understand what I'm trying to say. Like I wrote here the fuck you money kind of things. And I also made it a distinction. These can't be good investments. So like no, like, oh, I'd buy all this property or I'd buy this business in order to generate more money. No. This has to be stupid stuff. So I'll go ahead and go first with my 5 things.
Okay.
If you guys want to, I don't know, make fun of me for any of these, that's fine. Number 1 thing I would buy, and again, these have to be, well, I guess selfish overall. Number 1, a bass or guitar that was used by one of the Beatles when they were active. This is something I think would be very cool, very expensive. I don't know if I could even play it or touch it. Like I would, and it probably, this is one of those things that probably belongs in a museum somewhere. No single person should own that. But millions of dollars, why not? This is something I could see in an auction. Why not? All right. Number 2, Dig, this one's, I think you would agree with.
Okay.
I would like to have an original artwork collection from some of my favorite creators. I was thinking, first of all, like original Miyazaki drawings, Studio Ghibli backgrounds that were used in the films, original Oda art from One Piece, maybe Akira Toriyama, or like design documents. I guess we're getting on the edge of art here, but Nintendo design documents. I think about that video where they're just haphazardly flipping through the original design documents for Mario 1. It's like, what are you doing? Like, how could you even touch these with a human hand at this point? Like, seal these up. So some kind of ridiculous collection of art that's not necessarily fine art, but fine art to me.
I love that. Doesn't the Nintendo store in New York have some of that stuff in the display case? It's like, maybe it's like the rough draft for the first instruction manual or something in there. Yeah. Miyazaki original art. Not Miyazaki, Miyamoto, sorry.
Miyamoto, probably. It's funny that when I remember going there, I guess we were there a year ago, but I don't remember anything specifically. I remember seeing that Golf War Game Boy that's all melted.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
That one's pretty cool.
That's huge.
When I was in Japan, a lot of the One Piece stores had like an original drawing from Oda signed by him and stuff in it. And I was like, man, that's awesome. This is sick. The next one, and this one isn't really even fuck you money. Like, you could reasonably do this with a lot less, but to me, it feels unrealistic and unachievable. That's got to be the game collection, boys. And I want CIB full collections. First of all, PlayStation 1 CIB full collection. It's actually not. I was talking about this topic to Holly last night. I'm like, you know what? You don't really need millions of dollars to collect pretty much the full North American retail collection of PS1 games, outside of a few really crazy things like the 9/11 cover of Siphon Filter and stuff like that. But you could reasonably do it. So I expanded it. It's like, dude, NES, SNES, N64, GameCube, PS1. Along with, dude, personal arcade, of course. There's a guy on YouTube. I can't remember. It's been a few years since I saw what his channel is, but this is the guy that he clearly definitely does have millions of dollars. And you see his game room, which actually it's not just game room, it's game rooms, where you just see walls. It's like, oh, here's the complete N64 North American lineup, like everything. Here's every PS1 game complete. And then it's like his basement, or it has to be like a fucking mansion of a house, because this basement is bigger than 2 or 3 of my houses combined, where you go in this other room and he has a complete 80s arcade, complete with like the Galaxy looking floor and backlights and things like that. Like, yeah, it would feel so selfish, where it's like, man, I own all of these games that are meant to be enjoyed by so many people, but it's like, no. These are just here for me in my basement.
That's so cool.
Let's see the next one. This one's for you, Colin. Fully fund Mega Man Legends 3 with Capcom.
God, that would require so little, It
would.
50 million. You could probably
you
do
go to
it really
Capcom,
well.
You're like, listen, not just fund it. Let's say Capcom's like, we don't care about funding it. We're not worried we're going to make the profit. Cover that too. I don't care. You know what? Fuck it. We're talking crazy money. You go to Capcom, you're like, here is $1 billion. I want you to make Mega Man Legends 3, and like that Wu-Tang album, make 1 copy and then delete the rest.
And then delete it all.
And it's for me and me alone.
Wow, that's crazy.
I have thought about, like, it would be interesting. Like, I think about, the crazy rich people like Elon Musk. He's a gamer, of course. He could, like, if he loved an old series, he could just be like, yeah, I want a new one. Like, I'm gonna go and buy the rights and give it to a studio and say, make it. Kind of crazy. The last one is boring, but it would be like a private jet, because traveling, I love traveling, of course. Been to Japan multiple times in the last few years. Love going different places, and traveling is absolutely the worst part. Having to deal with the airport, sitting beside the luck of the draw, who you're sitting beside. And so, yeah, you know what? I'm willing to be like Taylor Swift. I don't care how bad it is for the environment.
From LAX to Santa Monica. Have you ever seen the video of that? Like where someone like recreated it? It's so funny.
Why not? Just burn up the environment. I'm not going to be here. much longer. Let someone else deal with it. So those are the 5 fuck you money things that I came up with. I'm curious, though, for you guys, if you won the lottery, there would be signs. What are your signs? Let's start with you, Colin.
Well, you said not to make good investments, but then you said you did make some good investments, though. So I'm just monetarily, like by investing in original art, like Miyazaki art is going to be worth a fortune.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So I'm not saying it's not in the spirit of it, but my one of my answers is definitely a good investment, but I'm not doing it for that reason. I would buy the New York Jets and the New York Islanders in like 2 seconds if I had the money to do it. This would require them to be for sale, first of all, and they're not. And the Jets are owned by the Johnson and Johnson family. So they have an infinite amount of money.
I never knew that.
There is the Hess family originally owned them. You might remember the Hess gas station family, hence the green and white.
Now, the lawyer has a question here in terms of objections, Colin.
Yeah.
I don't know the estimated value of the Jets and Islanders, but can this be covered by the hundreds of millions of dollars stipulation that Dustin put forward?
I thought he said hundreds of millions. I thought he said it was like whatever. No, definitely not. I'm sorry. You said hundreds of millions. That was where you put it?
I put hundreds of millions because
I misunderstood you. I thought you said it was like whatever. No, definitely not. The Jets would probably be worth $8 billion, something like that.
Again, like all things, I'm selfish in this inquiry because I did have things on my list where I'm like, I can't.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. So this is not going to work for that then. Yeah, the Jets and the Islanders would probably be worth a couple billion, I would assume. The Jets are, I think, one of the most valuable. Forbes does their annual list of like most valuable global sports franchises, and the Jets are in the top 10.
And the NFL.
How could that be?
It's because a lot of people ask that question. It's because they're an NFL team in the biggest media market, and so
the NFL overall is going to be worth a lot more than most other leagues.
Yeah, and
makes sense.
I think if you get into the numbers, I guess a big part of it too is that the Jets are one of the few teams unencumbered to a building, so they have they actually did go in with the Giants on the new building, but they are co-tenants and that brings their profitability up. The Giants also benefit from that too.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, an NFL building will only have 8 games a year. It's really not a very profitable thing, but the Giants and the Jets have 16 games a year going through their building. And so, plus playoffs or whatever, not that the Jets have to worry about that, but I'm sorry, I missed that whole speculate. So that's good. So no, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Don't worry about the rules too much. I want to just hear what you're passionate about buying.
Well, I'll just go into it then.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. It's like,
please.
I would be a professional sports team owner in 2 seconds. It would be fucking awesome. First of all, I'd move the Jets back to Long Island like that. Use another $2 billion, build a new stadium in the middle of Suffolk and Nassau, like where they meet.
Interesting. Okay.
Maybe you want to put it closer to where the Mets don't really play in it. Well, actually, the Mets do play in a similar place now, but the Islanders obviously have a new building. Maybe you want to put it over there, but I would move them back to Long Island. That's where they belong. That's where they started, and that's where they need to be. And that's Long Island's team. And it sucks.
You would want to piss people off by just putting it in Riverhead or something.
Riverhead. Oh my God, just put it as far away as possible. Yeah, they would love that. No, I think you couldn't go any further than the Nassau-Suffolk boundary, I think.
I like that.
But making it central, I think, would be fucking super cool. And it would be an unusual... It's an unusual geography for a sports team. I mean, if you go to the Patriots and see a Patriots game in New England, it's in the middle of fucking nowhere. You literally drive down like a 1-lane highway to get to it. It's cool. So I would do that. Yeah, the Jets would be built many billions of dollars, and they're not for sale. I think the last NFL team that got sold was the Broncos to the Walmart people, right? And I think that went for like 6 or something like that.
$6 billion?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Islanders, I think, would be worth less. Someone just bought them 10 years ago or so. Scott Malkin. And I don't know what they would be worth, but he's a good Long Island guy and he's keeping them there. It's not worried about that. The other thing I put would be even more expensive. So this is not in the spirit of what you were saying, I guess, but this is what I wrote in my notes before we began. One of the reasons why I like, and I know he's very controversial these days, but one of the reasons I fell in love with Elon Musk was because he was a private billionaire businessman that was like, no, I'm just going to spend a shit ton of money and we're going to space. Yeah. And I think that's so fucking cool. And because it's so hard, and the ambition of what they're trying to do to get people on Mars within a decade is wild. And so like, I would like to think that if I had that level of money where he might become a trillionaire at some point in our lifetime, it's like, yeah, just let's splice off 50 billion. And of course, this is net worth and not really real money. So you have to sell things and stuff like that. I mean, people forget about that, and it's like, let's build fucking a moon base. Let's build a Martian base outside of the government. Let's just do it ourselves. And that's what he's doing. And I know a lot of things people are upset about him. I get it. I understand. I totally get it. But that kind of thing is like so fucking cool. And I've just always been such a sci-fi nerd and a space travel nerd. And I've expressed many times on our shows the disappointment in when I was doing Colin's Last Stand. I did this video. I don't remember the name of it anymore, but it was about a moon base that the United States government was planning in the 50s. And it's fucking awesome. And I read all the documentation. It was like declassified and stuff like that. And the ambition of where we thought we were going to be and what we were going to do with space in those post-war years was so dope. And we kind of were doing it. It was like, yeah, like we're going. We got to the moon, which is unbelievable, and they're looking at Mars. They're looking at Venus. They're trying to figure it out. Rendezvous with asteroids. What are we going to do? Go to the outer, the gas giants. That was where the Grand Tour came from, and Voyager and all of the rest. And it's going to be very hard to line the planets up like that again anytime in our lifetime, obviously. Well, not very hard. It's just not going to happen. And somewhere along the way with Skylab and like shit in the 70s, people got tired of Apollo. It became really expensive and everything. And everyone's like, and just stopped. We just stopped. And then we were pretending things were really exciting, like the space shuttle. It's like, cool. The space shuttle is cool, but it goes into low Earth and it goes into orbit and it comes back. It's cool that it's reusable. It blew up twice, by the way. So it's not that cool. And then it's like the International Space Station, where we just stranded people because one of the defense contractors couldn't get them out. And it's like, dude, we went to the moon. What are we doing? Why are we not already on Ceres? Why are we not already on Mars? Like, why are we not already in an aerostat in Venus's orbit? And if you read the things that these people believed in that were doing this stuff, some of them German after the war, it's like they believed it. They really thought that we were going to do these kinds of things. And then we just stopped. And so it requires private people like a Jeff Bezos too, with Blue Origin. Micah's cousin, I think, works for Blue Origin, which is weird.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Where it's like, I would be all over this if I had that kind of money. I'd be like, absolutely, we're doing this. We're doing it. So that was another thing I had to throw in there was that. And then more grounded would be G.I. Joe shit and video game shit. So my friend, actually, he just stopped by last week. Or earlier this week, Kenny Kopnick, who owns a toy store in Ohio. He's a good buddy of mine and a listener of the show. And he was here with his fiance and their kid. And he was picking up a bunch of my G.I. Joe stuff because, as you can see, I just stopped putting my collection up like years ago. And I was like, I can't do this. It's just too much work. He's like, dude, just give me the stuff and like we'll figure it out and we'll make a trade and I'll like send you back like the pristine condition, like complete versions of every toy and we'll like do some sort of transaction.
What's the name of his store called? Do you remember?
It's the Toy Department.
Yes.
In Ohio.
Okay. I have his Instagram. Okay.
And he's a really sweet guy. And I had his son was like 5. I had him playing the drums back there and stuff. And I think might have accidentally introduced him to the drums. So sorry about that to Kenny. So, it's like he's really sweet. And he gave me like as a present, he's like, hey, I got these for you. Cause he's obviously like a high-end toy dealer. I don't have them up here. Actually, they're downstairs on the kitchen table still. These, they're the samples of like the Mega Man toys that Jada or whatever, that I think that's what they're called, are doing. The ones I have back there that I've shown before. Mm-hmm. And they're like pre-production, like unpainted, these like cool models that they were messing around with to try to like tweak everything and get the colors right and stuff. And he's like, he said something like, now it's time for you to start getting into like this sort of thing. Cause he's like, you are imminently going to have a complete collection of G.I. Joes from 82 to 94. You have them all in these boxes. We just have to extract them and figure it out. And I was like, yeah, that would be super cool. And with G.I. Joe especially, there are like the line was canceled in 94, but they were already starting to produce the 95 figures and they exist. and they're like, and very small numbers, and they're like mega expensive. And he's like, these are the sorts of things you're going to get into. And I already started buying boxed, he sent me a bunch of them. Like I have a bunch of carded G.I. Joes from 88, 89, 90, 91, like in perfect condition. And so going ham on that sort of thing would be awesome. But that, honestly, it's like what you were saying. It's like, it wouldn't require a lot of money, but it wouldn't require that much money. Like you could probably have it all for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the idea of talking about millions and hundreds of millions, it's like, it wouldn't require that. The shit that would be crazier would be video game stuff. And I have no interest in like a video game collection of like games. I don't, and like I've said many, many, many times, Dagan has all my physical games, and that's totally fine. It's like, but getting pre-production art and just weird things, like just ephemera, basically, I think would be like super cool. And I think that's where a lot of the money is going to be in the future. It's not just about the physical games, but about all the things that surround it. And I've taken for granted a lot of the things that I have that I actually think are probably valuable, like just compendiums of, when I got my first builds of Mega Man 9 and Mega Man 10, I kept them both. They're both like on disc, like early builds of them and complete builds, like little weird things like this. I think will have a value to people, whether in like some sort of repository museum style thing or in a private collection. And I would love that stuff. And I've even been able to add some of that to myself. Like I have a personal, my R Mega Man 2 instruction manual from a kid. Inafune drew Mega Man on it for me, like his head. And I have that in like a frame, cool. And like little things I think like that would be pretty cool. I have a copy of Rockman 3 on Famicom signed by Inafune. Little things like that. I would like to mess around with things like that. But honestly, I'm a pretty simple man. And I've said this in the past, and I totally believe it. And I mean it, is if I even had hundreds of millions of dollars, an extraordinary amount of generational wealth, I would take care of my family and set everyone up but I would give a lot of it away. I just totally feel confident in that. And I would actively spend it in different, philanthropic ways, but I don't think I would get too crazy with buying myself too many things. I just want comfort and and security. Otherwise it's like, who cares? You could do a lot for people and movements and stuff with that money.
Yeah. When it comes to video game stuff, dude, the boutique one of a kind items are, well, not even one of a kind, but just the stuff that's not like retail that is now rare. I don't have almost anything in that camp other than I have an employee only DualSense controller.
Cool.
That is probably the rarest thing in my collection that was given to me by someone who will remain anonymous, but very nice, gave me this controller. And I'm like, this shows up on eBay and it always goes for like $1,000 or more. And it only pops up every once in a while. And usually it's not even in like complete in box. But you see stuff like, man, the Nintendo PlayStation has been sold before.
Yeah, another one popped up recently, right?
Yes, I just read that.
Which is crazy. And there are at least 3 of them, right? Because there's that one that is known, and then there's the one that Kaz says he has, right? And then there's the third one that like some dude found in his dad's attic or something. It was like, whoa, yeah, cool, man.
Dagan, I want to ask you, I need to derail us for a second because Colin was talking about space travel and it reminded me of something I learned the other day. I learned that with the Challenger explosion, of course, everyone knows about the teacher that was on board. Brutal. Horrible tragedy that happened. I learned that before they settled on sending a teacher to space, they were contemplating have it be being Big Bird going to space. No way.
That sounds right. That sounds like familiar. Like, yeah, they're going to do something crazy like that.
That's Carol Spinney, who played Big Bird his whole career, like until like 2 years ago. So imagine
the timeline where Big Bird is the one on and they have Big Bird going in on the ship. All of these children watching Big Bird fucking die. Like they would like, don't you think you have perspective from working on Sesame Street stuff, like they would have to canonize. Like they can't just be like, oh, Big Bird, he had a parachute. Like what do they do?
Yeah, it would have been like a whole arc about death and shit like that, probably, right? It would have been crazy.
Well, they did that with Mr. Hooper when he actually died in the 80s. He's the guy who manned their little supermarket, general store, bodega, whatever they want to call it. Yeah, that's interesting. The sad part about that is it would be Carol who played Big Bird and Oscar from the late 60s, from the inception of the show. until 2020 or whenever he finally retired. So that would be, dude, that I remember
dude,
where I was.
Can I just say something really quick? I'm sorry. I just love the idea of like them almost forcing this woman to go on this thing. She's like, I'm not really Big Bird. Like, I'm an actress. I don't want to go into space. And they're like, no, Big Bird's going to space.
No, Carol was a dude.
Carol's a dude. Oh, okay.
He's a dude.
Oh, okay. Carol. So yeah, he's going in, like, so he's forcing this dude. He's like, I don't want to go to space. I don't like, no, Big Bird's going to like put someone else in the Big Bird costume. It's like, no, Big Bird's going to space. You're going to space. And then the Challenger explosion happens.
That would be so sad. He also was an amazing actual like artist, and he would do a lot of the illustrations for the various Sesame Street magazines and stuff. And every time he came through, we didn't interact as the animation team. We didn't interact with him a whole lot, but sometimes he would always do drawings for us and leave them. He was like the sweetest man. So on top of like how tragic that would be just on its face, that makes it even worse that he was like literally the sweetest. He was like Fred Rogers. You know what I mean? He was like that type of dude. Dude, I remember I was sitting in McDonald's with my family when that happened. I remember being gutted because I was a kid, you know? I remember exactly where I was and how I felt when that happened. Seeing it like on the TV monitors in the corner of like the McDonald's dining room or whatever. It was like, holy shit. I was eating a Happy Meal or something. It was like... That was
a big, I mean, I was very young when it happened. I was 2 or 3, but when I lived in New Hampshire later for a couple of years, Krista McCullough, I think her name was the teacher. She was from New Hampshire, and she's memorialized everywhere there. There's like this memorial. I know the state planetarium is named after her. And stuff. So yeah, she was. Yeah, it's a tragic thing, man. You know, space travel is dangerous as fuck. It really is, and it's always the launch or coming back. That's crazy because that's what happened with Columbia coming back, right? It blew up coming back. It didn't blow up going, which is also horrifying. Right. And then those people just trapped in the International Space Station they were supposed to be there for 6 days. They were there for like 200 or something. Oh my! And they had to like keep it together. Obviously they're professional people and all of the rest, and it seemed like you can only put on so much. It seemed like they were kind of okay. You know, they were making the best of it or whatever, but I'm like, damn,
their
dude.
Press conference was very impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, I'm like, this is dicey as fuck, man, because the ship that brought you there is so faulty that it can't get you back. And now we have to scramble, and we don't just launch things and stuff. Like there's all these things that have to happen first, and it's very expensive and all the rest. And it's like, damn, dude, I would have. It's scary. It's scary stuff. But are you guys in awe like I am about Artemis and like the idea of going back to the moon in the coming years and stuff? I think it's so fucking fun.
Yeah, it's neat.
It just, they say that Apollo was responsible for like a 2 or 3x increase in engineering people. And that was a major component of the rise of Silicon Valley and our expertise with computers and all of the rest that America really relies on to this day. And it's like, we could use another boost in the arm like that, I think, although it's puzzling to me that people don't understand like why you would want to do this. Like they're like, yeah, what's the purpose? And I'm like, I honestly don't need a why. There's like, who gives a shit why? We should just do it. It's right there. We're humans. Like, let's go.
It's right there.
You know, it's there. It's like beckoning us. And it's amazing. So everyone, it's like the age of discovery. It's like, are you looking for the Northwest Passage or something? It's like, no, I'm not. We're just like on to the next. Can you imagine telling people in the past that we actually went to the moon?
That's incredible.
Like,
did we? I don't know.
Yeah, we definitely went. And by the way, this always comes up because people always say like, no, there is no evidence. There is visual evidence of our landings on the moon. If you look up specifically, I think it's an Indian satellite that took vivid pictures of the landers and the tracks that they left with the buggies in the dirt and all that kind of stuff. Every time I bring that up, someone's like, that didn't happen. I'm like, no, it did.
I know. I'm just kidding.
It did. Just Google it. I don't know what you want me to tell you. You know, like.
I think it's important for people and societies being made up of people to have aspirations, to have dreams, to have things they're reaching for.
Sure.
Whether that's the stars or something else. So I think that's great. I am a big fan of the space race era and have looked into all sorts of aspects of that. I love the notion of coming together to do something grand like that. I would hope that if we get closer to some of those milestones, that more people would be on board with it as an endeavor. I don't know right this second whether society can get behind some great works or not at this point.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's a bummer. Great works like we're in Civilization.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
You guys,
all right, well,
if Big Bird died, though, I have a philosophical question for you.
Sure.
Would we have then lost Snuffleupagus as well? Because he was an imaginary friend.
Oh,
right? We would have lost 2.
Oh my God, that would have been crazy. And then there was like an episode where Snuffleupagus just kind of just goes into the ether, you know? And it's like all about loss. It's like that thing. It's like that episode of, or that issue of the Marvel G.I. Joe run when they just like killed like half the G.I. Joes, or the Transformers movie.
Transformers movie.
It would be like that, like where like a third of the Sesame Street Workshop characters are just dead. You know, and everyone has to learn how to cope.
Yep.
The count's telling you, they're like, Count, how many are dead? And he's like, 1, 1, 2, 2. You know,
he starts crying as he.
How many body bags do we need? No. 5 body bags.
I got to look into this. I can't believe I never heard about that. I'm glad Dustin told me about it. That
sounds like something that I've heard before.
I think that's
totally
true.
Sounds, that sounds totally real. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like NASA in the 80s as well.
Yeah.
It's pretty terrifying.
Well, Dag, I have high expectations for your list here of things. I feel like you're maybe the most kid at heart of all of us here. Maybe. So I expect great things, but please.
Thank you for saying it so delicately. Aline would just say immature, but that would be, but yeah. But hey, look, I wear it. You know, I cop to it. I'm going to keep it fun and frivolous, Dust. I think that's the spirit here. But I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do this. It's going to be a little bit of 2 for me, 1 for them. I'm going to take 2 things for myself. Then I'm going to give 1 thing a piece to my family. So my son, my daughter.
Boring.
It's good. They're going to get. But listen,
no generosity, Dag. No, you go ahead.
With mine, I have let's see, 1, 2. I have a bunch of picks. So I'm going to let you guys vote for the answers that you like best for me. And then I'll lay out what I'm going to do for my family. So the first thing I would buy, I think, this is probably my top choice, but you guys weigh in. I would just buy Bill Watterson. Him. I would buy the guy. Just buy the man.
Now we have an amendment about that.
I was going to say, what's the law? Which amendment is that?
This is a lot of money. I don't think. Now listen, Bill Watterson, for those who don't know, created my favorite comic strip work of art ever, Calvin and Hobbes. Now I don't think he'd be too cool with this. This is the guy who refused to merchandise and license Calvin and Hobbes. So him being sold outright, I don't think he's going to be into it. There's going to be a little kicking and screaming, but I want Bill Watterson.
I didn't know that about him. He's kind of like the reverse, like a Garfield guy.
Oh, he's
like
the
polar opposite.
Complete antithesis to Jim Davis.
Jim Davis, right.
Yeah. He's like known curmudgeon, came out of the woodwork to do some weird book. It's on my shelf back there with a, co-illustrated, wrote a book with somebody and then just faded into obscurity again. He would be the person that would be the scariest to buy, but I want him. So that would be my first choice. I would just buy Bill Watterson. I'm not even sure what I would do with him, but that's somebody who I want to own. So sure. That would be my first pick.
Interesting.
Second,
I didn't know this about him.
Slavery on the table now. Yeah. So Hoeg, get ready.
We're just going to think about it as an exorbitant personal services contract.
Yeah. Sure.
And we're going to leave it at that.
Okay.
It's definitely not going to be, it's not going to be Pulp Fiction, ball gags, and gasoline and all that kind of stuff.
You're going to,
it's going to be, we're going to keep it on the up and up.
You're going to indenture him for 7 years to pay for his transatlantic voyage.
Mm-hmm.
A little history joke for you. Oh.
And this is, as far as I know, this is a weird guy too, because obviously multimillionaire many times over, turned down a lot of money, but still lives in like somewhere in rural Ohio, like never moved anywhere else.
That's the life, dude.
It's pretty, yeah. I mean, Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, he lives in Ohio too. Yeah, to me, it's like I would I totally get it where I'm like, I don't want that much. I want more. Like, but I don't need, like, there comes a level where it's like, dude, this is great. And I think some people just get there.
You can just be satisfied.
Yeah. Like, can't you just be, when I see some of these sports contracts, sometimes I'm like, damn, dude, I mean, good for you, but it's like, it's fucking a lot of money, man.
I know.
Yeah. It's a lot of money. And the amount of money I wouldn't even know what to do with. Like, it wouldn't take, I would be in the double digit millions, somewhere in the double digit millions, where I'd be like, I'm not really even sure what else to do. You know, bought my house, paid off things for my family, gave some money away. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, enough's enough.
Yeah, like what? There's a lot of greed.
I don't know. I can't relate to that.
Greed. Do what you got to do. But there's a lot of people that seem to need a lot.
Sure, yeah.
The athlete contracts are always an interesting one. I have this conversation with my parents a lot because it is the fact of the matter that a lot of people want to pay for tickets or TV contracts or anything else to go and watch these sporting events. So the question really becomes, when you have that vast amount of wealth coming into the endeavor, who does it go to? If it's not going to the athletes, it's going to be retained by the owners or the structure of the league. And so for the most part, it makes sense to have the splits that we see in things like the NFL collective bargaining agreement, where you've got the 50-50 splits, where, yes, it becomes just a ridiculous amount of money in any one contract. It absolutely does. But the alternative is you've got this money coming in. You've got this tens of thousands of people that want to watch this thing happen. So it's either going to the athletes, who are the ones doing the thing that people want to watch, or it's going to essentially the landlord.
Yeah, absolutely. Team. That's a really interesting point. I mean, and that's absolutely true. It's just, I even, especially in baseball, I feel like it's like, you guys, but for baseball specifically, I'm like, you guys have this much money?
Yeah.
Really?
The Dodgers' salary is insane.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, wow, you actually have this much money. One thing I was interested in, it looks like the A's are doing pretty well in Sacramento. I saw some footage of one of the games.
That's right.
They're only playing in front of 12,000, which is kind of cool. So it's got like an A or double A feel to it. But
yeah, definitely.
But it's
I forgot they were there now.
Yeah,
I totally forgot about that. Okay, so second one, barring Bill Watterson, that would be my number. No, I could do this along with Bill Watterson because I get two. Remember,
who's next on your list? We're down here in Charleston, apparently, in 1840.
You'll enjoy it. I'll take a page out of the art book with you guys, but I'm going for Pablo Picasso, my favorite. His 1921, I want to say early 20s painting. I believe it's hanging in MoMA right now in New York City, but I'm gonna have to buy it from them. I'm gonna have to get it somehow. 3 musicians. Now Helene made me this beautiful tile mosaic. You guys will know the image. It's this painting.
Oh,
that's the little tile version. The real one is huge. I want to say it's like 5 feet by 5 feet, maybe. That would be the one piece of art, and not even for a return on any kind of investment for the future, just because I literally love it. It's like one of my favorite works of art.
What would be the value of that, you think? Because Picasso is, I mean, an enormous amount of money, no doubt, but also Picasso did a lot, right?
He did a lot.
He was very accessible prolific. And would like sign a ton of shit and do all that. And I think I learned on Antiques Roadshow that he kind of, not that he gives a shit, but unintentionally kind of hurt the value of his things because there's a lot of it. But I feel like,
and he was famous during his time too.
Right.
It wasn't like Van Gogh where he became, you know what I mean? Which actually kind of works in reverse favor if you think about it, because he was notable for so long. His stuff goes for millions, obviously, but you might be surprised. Yeah, and there might be 2-3 musician paintings also. There may be 2 of them.
8.8 million. So it says in 2021 alone, a peak year for auctions, sales of Picasso's paintings reached nearly $532 million for its 60 works sold, an average of 8.8 million per work. That sounds about right. And I know that sounds crazy, but in my mind, like, I know that there are paintings that are worth tens and hundreds of millions of dollars because there's only so many of them, or they're older or whatever.
Sure.
That's what I was curious about. In other words, I was wondering like, how accessible might a Picasso be for you? Maybe not that one, but like some Picasso you could probably buy in your lifetime.
Like a little drawing.
Yeah. Right.
Something like that.
Because there's all those cool videos of him like doing all the they circulate on Twitter every once in a while of him like drawing and doing his like very specific style.
Yeah, he's somewhat contemporary too. That's the other thing to remember. Remember in The Sopranos, didn't AJ date a girl, the rich blonde girl who had her dad had Picassos in the living room.
Yeah.
That was so cool. I don't know why I thought of that. But that would be my choice just because I love it. Nothing, monetary value be damned. I just love that piece of art. It's gorgeous, and the colors and just the graphic representation of the figures. It's just really, really to me, standing in MoMA in front of that painting, which I have a few times, it's just like, wow, letting it wash over me, that type of thing. Now, so Bill Watterson and three musicians, those would be my top two. If we were just going like sort of just fun, opulent, but not too opulent. And by the way, this is not to spend up all the money. These are just fun things that I would want for myself. I love to drive, right? Just a couple of cars befitting of my passion for driving. Not because they're the most expensive, just because they're my favorite. A Porsche, let's say a 2024 Porsche GT3 RS, gorgeous. I think it's the prettiest car ever made. Beautiful. I always wanted to own a Porsche, not necessarily just for their speed, but for their handling, right? I love a four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive car. So GT3 RS. And then my daily driver, I would probably just do a low mileage, humble 2014, 2015 BMW M3, just to drive around. I never owned a BMW. I think the M3 is like one of the most beautiful machines, especially of that era on the planet. I think they're beautiful. I think they're understated. So that would
you build like a test track for them or a garage?
I'm not a big track guy. You know what I mean? I love going up the Pennsylvania Turnpike, like maybe halfway to Dustin's house, like west of Harrisburg, where it just opens up. All of a sudden there's just nobody behind you, nobody in front of you. Maybe just skip it up on the PA Turnpike to 100, 105, just for a second. Just a tip, right? That's my thing.
Jesus.
That's my speed. So yeah, it's track and all that kind of stuff. Nah, I just want an authentic driving experience. Those two cars, perfect. No, nothing else. Again, like nice. I'm not complaining, but I'm not looking to trade anything in. I'm not looking to like build value and then flip it. Nothing like that. So those would be my two choices. And then barring that, I love watches. I do have a couple of nice watches. And I think the watch thing could get a little crazy. So I would just I don't have like $10,000 watches. So like maybe two $10,000 to $15,000 watches. I think spending any more on that, no matter how rich you are, it's just a little too rich for my blood. It's just a little too opulent. So maybe a nice little like $10,000 Breitling and like a $15,000 Patek Philippe, right? There's two nice watches I could just have forever. Give them to my son someday. That's it. Like beautiful, but not afraid to wear it beautiful, right? Like something I can't afford now, but something that I could aspire to have, like two just nice watches, like a change them out, right? Then I have a few nice watches. That's enough.
I would be terrified to wear $1,000 watch. I think
I get it. I definitely
maybe
get it.
I don't know. Maybe if I had that much money though, but I don't know. I've never been a watch guy though.
I never was, Dust, until maybe 10 years ago. I started to like appreciate. There's something about the precision, the way they're built with the crystals. I mean, it's beautiful the way they're handmade. There's just something. I know it often goes hand in hand with a car thing. I don't know. Maybe there's something in that, an appreciation for the moving parts and all that kind of thing.
The mechanical genius of it is fucking.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
It's wild.
With the jewels and the crystals, and it's pretty fat. And I don't know a lot, but yeah, they're just pretty.
They are cool. They're very sophisticated and rich looking. I would love watches, but I'm built like a girl. Like
I have
seriously, I just think a big chunky like rich person watch. If I were, in my future, invest in some like really nice watch, it would just look stupid. Yeah. And then what am I going to buy it just to keep it in a case?
Right. Just to keep. Right. Exactly. Yeah. There's something about like not wearing a watch every day, like wearing it for an event, wearing it for a holiday, getting dressed up, a wedding, only pulling it out every so often. There's just something cool. And the fact that they're small. So by their nature, they're not super flashy. It's not like driving around a Lamborghini. That's not I don't want to be stared at by everybody. I just want something that I know is nice, understated, right? That the car, I mean, the Porsche GT3 RS is not really understated, but it's just something so pretty about the way that car looks and the unique shape of it and all that kind of thing. The telltale silhouette and all that kind of thing. But for the most part, nothing flashy, just something that I know is nice and something you have to be in the know to know is nice, right? Something appealing about that. But barring that, then I would have to weigh in for Helene, Graydon, and Lilia. So for Helene, I actually texted her about this. I didn't give her the premise, but I just said, if you had all this money, what would you buy? We landed on, she was like, oh, I love to travel. So I said, yeah, that's perfect for her, who loves to fly and loves to travel and wants to go everywhere. Got to get Helene the private jet.
Yeah.
With the crew.
I love the notion that you might have accidentally intimated by text message that you won the lottery.
Even if I told her that, the level of disbelief would be so enormous that I'd be like, I can't believe something good is actually
That's
happening.
such a great selection, though, because it's like Dustin was saying earlier when he said that too, it's like, that just takes all the pressure off of going places. Like at that point, who cares?
Yeah.
You're like, you have whatever, like you have a crew and you're like, I want this, and this on this plane. I'm going to have a fucking bed in there or something. I'm just going to do whatever I want. I'm in an airplane. Who cares?
Go where you want, when you want.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, that would be great. So that would be awesome to have at your own plane would be sick.
The only thing about the private plane with the crew and everything is I'm confused about the actual bottom line dollar amount it would cost, because I hear people that I know are wealthy, like comedian Tim Dillon, right? I think that guy has a private plane. Like he makes enough money to have a private plane.
Dude, I was listening.
A lot of people timeshare their planes.
Yeah, that's what I was going. Dude, I've been listening to him a lot. Like I'm not hot and cold, but I just listen to him and then I just don't for a while. And I've been listening to a lot of his clips lately. He's so fucking funny, dude. That guy is so hilarious. That guy is so. I was listening to literally him going on about the Oompa Loompas lately. Did you listen to that clip about him? And
No,
the Oompa
I didn't
Loompas?
hear this.
It's like in regards to like families and working families, and he was just talking about like Oompa Loompas were. He has this whole analogy about working at the chocolate factory, and then he has little Oompa Loompa kids, and they fire him and all this kind of stuff. It's so he's just a really funny guy, and you have to kind of like sit with him.
You do,
because it's like a little bit of a winding brand like way sometimes. He's funny. That's a funny guy.
Yeah, he's so tangential. And yeah, when he goes off on something and just, I was introduced to him through Rogan.
Yeah.
Because on his Rogan appearances, occasionally I'd be like, who is this guy? And then I realized, he's a stand-up comedian. I realized the Long Island roots. A lot of things he says about growing up. Because he's your age, Kyle. He's very relatable because of his background. But yeah, when he goes off on a tangent, it's unbelievable. Like it's a stream of conscious, almost like Robin Williams, but more cynical, much more cynical.
Yeah. I was listening to one last night was Had Me Dying, where he was talking about like how he regrets being rich and that you need to fight for your office jobs and that he wished he worked at Geico so that they could talk about how much they like hate people in the office and like just gossip and live like this meaningless life, and how much he's so funny. He's so self-deprecating and weird.
He's really weird. He's always got the glasses on, right?
And he does Netflix stuff, I think, too. But I haven't seen.
I think he's had stand-up specials. I think he's getting into movies now. He's doing movie parts and stuff like that.
On preliminary review, it looks like you can get a jet for tens of millions, and you can spend hundreds of millions if you'd like.
Yeah, tens of millions. Okay.
And Dag, you already got a crew member with your with Bill Watterson. You can just put him on there.
Sure, that's right. There we go.
That's right. Bill Watterson serves a 7-year indenture as your flight attendant.
I like him as a flight attendant.
Yeah.
That might work. Now this is good. All right, this is good. I'm not sure how good Helene would get along with Bill Watterson. I'm not sure how anyone would get along with Bill Watterson. But he's definitely, I mean, in this whole conversation, it's done. Like I'm buying him, so
this is some interesting world. He's living in some sort of dystopia.
That's the one thing that's happening for sure. And then for Graydon, he's a big Corvette kid, right? So I would buy him two 2025 ZR1 Corvettes. Talking about going to the factory, spec'd out, built from scratch, two identical, one for him to drive and one for him to put away for retirement. I don't want a single mile on it because that could be hundreds of millions of dollars 50 years from now. A ZR1 Corvette with no miles on it. just beautifully preserved.
Dude, I love you must see the videos on YouTube of people finding these, and often not nice cars, but like cars that are like, it's like a 1988 Honda Civic, but like it's never been driven. And I'm like, whoa, that's so fucking cool. And they are like mega valuable even at that low end. Dude. So if you have like that have never seen the road, it's so interesting. I didn't know that he was in the Corvettes. I mean, our mother has our mom has 2 Corvettes.
She does.
And I wonder if my mom always, so the story about this is my mom always wanted a Corvette, and it was just like always her dream. And like people would give her goof gifts. Like here's a Corvette Christmas ornament, or here's like a Corvette for your, and it's like always, and my mom always drove nice cars, like Miata style sports cars. Like little ones. And then her husband 5 years ago or whatever, maybe not even, bought her like a Corvette from the 80s. And it was in good shape, but it needed a lot of work, like engine work and stuff like that. And so they've been working slowly on it. But then, so it was like this thing, my mom's like, I finally have a Corvette. She joined like the local Corvette club. They like meet people and like talk about Corvettes, I guess. And I don't know. And then it just so happened, you might know this better than me, Dig. It's like someone in our family.
Yeah, Tommy.
Okay, right. Had like random access to this beautiful 2004, I think, Corvette that is barely been driven, and my mom got to buy it at like a really great price.
Yeah, he owned it and didn't like it.
Yeah, and so my mom just now has 2 Corvettes. It's pretty. That
escalated quickly.
Yeah, it did. So I mean, I imagine, Graydon might be lined up for one of those at some point in the future.
He takes a page out of grandma's book with the car. I'm a big German car guy. I don't know where my son gets his taste from, but it's, it's authentic. He's got to do him. Listen.
Yeah, because he's an American. He's not some weirdo.
We still got to teach him about German engineering. There's hope. There's hope. But right now, the Corvettes would make him.
Speaking of the moon missions.
Yeah. And then for Lilia, my daughter's really cute because she's 18 now, and she loves, she loves fashion. She wants to go into fashion marketing and advertising specifically for the cosmetic and fashion brands. Like that's her goal. That's going to be her major in college. But she's cute because she's just as apt to just go to Canal Street and buy ripoff brands like bootlegs. She's really into the bootlegs. But I think it would be really cute, really cool to just like go to Paris and get her an authentic Hermes bag. And just tell her, let her figure it out if it's bootleg or not. Get her a $50,000 bag. Let her know if it's bootleg or not. And just the one, you know what I mean? I think my daughter's going to grow up to do very well for herself. She's not going to need dad's help. But if we're just doing the one gift, we'll just get her the custom made Hermes, which are all made by hand. Big wait list. You got to go. There's a lot of wealthy people in the world, I guess. It's very hard to get. You may have to wait for years. Actually, was it 60 Minutes did a great story on them. And they were trying to compare. It was the guy who runs Hermes, which has been in the family for generations, right? They just make, beautifully hand-tailored, handbags. Like a Fendi or Chanel or Armani, but this is like a very specific, they make bags. And they were trying to compare it to Mercedes-Benz or something. He was like, you're comparing something that's like mechanical to something that's like, just like a handmade work of art. Like he was very offended by it. It was fascinating. So I would just do that. So again, 2 for me, 1 for them, but I don't want to be completely selfish. As long as I get my Bill Watterson, I'm fine. As long as I get Bill W, I'm good. And, maybe as the runner-up gift, I get the Picasso. And again, not for value, just for I'll just hang it in my studio. I'll hang in the background of the podcast.
I looked this up, by the way, Dig. There were 6, 7, 8, 9, something like that. 9 Picassos sold for more than $100 million.
Wow!
Adjusted for inflation, have been about 20.
Well, that's the thing.
So it seems like he has some. It seems like the volume hasn't affected the high end of the market because some of these are really notable paintings. Like even I would know, like Young Girl with a Flower Basket. I know that one. Some of these are yikes.
And you know what you reminded me of, Kyle?
Yeah.
Helene always wanted a vintage Volkswagen Beetle from the 70s. And in the spirit of what you were saying, they found one in Vermont, had like 14, it was like a 1974, had 14 miles on it, right? It was just sitting and never driven. It still had all the tags on the upholstery and everything. The thing sold at auction for like $35 grand. Like very affordable, like not affordable for me.
Yeah.
But affordable for a lot of people. Like I was
At
shocked.
that price, I would have just held it.
Yeah, really. It's not even like that great, right? Like you sitting on that something for that long, you would think you would really make out.
Yeah, I would just be like, no, I'll put it away until there are no cars left that can't be shut
something
down with
like
an
that
EMP.
hurts because the number sounds approachable. Like I might have been able to like refinance the house.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Like,
that might have been a good, interesting investment.
Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, before used cars started really blowing up in price, Dad and I were talking about that. Our dad is like, he's owned a bunch of old cars in the past. He gave like one of his old 40s trucks to our sister Allie because she really loved it. And he has like always just one kind of circulating. And then he has like a couple other cars that he actually drives. And but he just enjoys working on them. Doesn't really want to keep them anymore.
Yeah, he's not even speculating.
Yeah,
anything.
Right. But I was like, yeah, like I'll pay for the cars and you can work on them and then like we can sell them. But then like used cars have become we haven't really talked about this directly, but used cars have become so expensive that I think it's had this trickle down effect where basically all cars are just more expensive.
Yeah,
because you're getting lower into like, well, maybe this is more utilitarian and less old if I have to pay this much for a car. And so it raises all the prices.
No, absolutely. That's true. Yeah.
You wouldn't give me any money, Dig?
Huh?
You wouldn't give me any money?
What for?
Just
No, I wouldn't. No, I wasn't really thinking of.
That's fair enough.
Hoeg, that leaves you with
all right
with your choices.
I have to say this was maybe the hardest topic that I have ever received on Constellation.
Whoa.
For at least one reason, and that's because I like to follow the rules. I'm a rule-following type guy, and Dustin was very specific about both the amount in hundreds of millions and the fact that it basically couldn't be useful. And so I wound up thinking about a movie that I really liked to watch when I was younger, which some of you may or may not be familiar with, called Brewster's Millions.
Oh.
In which Richard Pryor, this was a remake of an older movie, even older than the 80s, was tasked with, I think it was his grandfather, may have been someone else in the family, with spending $30 million and not having it equal any assets at the end of a month. And the purpose of this was complicated in the movie. It's a comedy, but it was that the grandfather or the estate giver in this movie wanted him to have an understanding of the value of money and wanted him to really abhor money when he got access to the bigger estate after he spent this $30 million. So I was thinking about this because it was very difficult for me to imagine investments that were purely frivolous. Like even if I wound up spending money, I would probably spend it on something that I thought could accrue value in the future. And so I tried very hard to tamp down on that. Fortunately, I have been blessed enough in my life to be in and around conversations that are about how to spend huge amounts of money. Not for me or my family, mind you, but because I'm a corporate lawyer, I've had the opportunity to help close deals in which founders of small companies have what we call exited and sold those companies to strategic or other investors that have a lot of money to give. And so I've been at closing dinners where everybody's three sheets to the wind and talking about what they're going to do with their money. And one of the things that has come out a lot in those conversations is the reason why I tend to talk to my clients or prospective clients about island money. A lot of these founders who are otherwise generally rural, small town, ostentatious Midwesterners say what we really want is a place to go that is our own, that is private, oftentimes an island, a beach on an island, not generally money to buy islands, but there are cheaper islands than you might think in various places around the world. And so I call it island money. That's the kind of thing I would be thinking about. I'm not an ostentatious guy myself. I really wouldn't be putting up the Mr. Deeds fountain of Kool-Aid or chocolate or anything else. But I understand the spirit of the question. And so I was trying to get into the mindset of spending this money. And one of the things I had to do was think that I was only having this conversation with you, Dustin, after I had otherwise paid off my house, the houses of everybody I cared about, set aside enough money for the college funds for my daughters, that kind of thing. So this conversation is happening after I did all that because that's not interesting and that's not what was part of your question, which is a whole lot of disclaiming and a whole lot of lawyering to explain why this was very difficult for me. But let's get to the actual substance after I've given enough disclaimers to put on the end of a Micro Machines ad. So the first thing I wanted to mention is that I love pinball.
Oh, hell
and so with enough money, one, I would buy a lot of fancy pinball machines. I would love to have those around. And depending on exactly how many hundreds of millions we're talking about, I might also try to revive a pinball brand or pinball company.
Oh, cool.
Because I love pinball. I have great memories of playing pinball, both with my grandfather and my father. And I would love to see more pinball exist in the world.
Are you good at it, Hoeg? I'm terrible at pinball. Terrible.
I'm not going to compete for Pinball Wizard at all, but especially with the timing on my left hand at this point. But there was a time when I was pretty good at hitting the ramps on the pinball machines that were in my home. And my grandfather, before he passed, had a pinball machine from the 60s called Knockout that I used to play every time I visited him. And it was transferred to me upon his passing and is currently in my basement. I've played it with my daughter.
That's cool.
I love it. It was a reward for doing homework.
Is it the boxing themed one?
It is the boxing.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures of it. Cool.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I think it was a relatively mass market, not arcade only pinball machine.
Okay.
But it's fantastic. It makes all the cool mechanical clinking noises. It's really before it was totally electronic. And I love it to death. I love pinball. I love teaching it to my daughters. I love all the strategy that goes into pinball, which you might not think if you don't play it a lot, because it's just a metal ball and flippers. But there's a lot of cool strategies in maximizing points in all of these machines. I would love to do that. And this is really the theme for my expenses. I would love to have my money be out there creating things in the world. I would love to revive pinball in some important fashion. If I had billions, one of the things that I had crossed off was that, like Colin and his purchase of the jets, I would love to extract Star Wars from Disney.
Yeah.
I would love to take that back and get creators on it that I trust and would love to see them make stories. I have advocated in this space and others that you do not have to just give canon rights to whatever corporate overlord owns those. At that point in time, you can make your own understanding of what the stories that you love actually are. But since so many people don't agree with me on that or are otherwise going to give authority to the owners of the IP rights, I would love to own those myself, get that canon built back up, maybe restore some of the Legends universe, the novels that I love so much in the Star Wars universe, and save it that way. Similarly, I had thought if I had enough money, and I don't think this is something that would be interesting to Konami at the hundreds of millions of dollars level, I would love to restore Metal Gear to Hideo Kojima, to have those forces combined once again, and to otherwise have something in that universe that was created by its original creator and just be out there in the world. That's what I would love to do with my money, because I don't want to be ostentatious personally. I wouldn't be out there tweeting about these things. It's not what I would want to do. In the vein of Colin's discussion of space, I think that Elon Musk and friends seem to have that covered right now. I would like to take the SpaceX approach to something like the oceans. I am obsessed with water. I love ships. This is my James Cameron era, is the ocean exploration. But I would love to fund research and development of technologies for the exploration of the oceans. And I don't know what those look like, right? I'm not the idea guy there. I am not the engineer. But I would love to have something that is funding those things. And in that vein, I would probably do something like basically all rich people do, which is to create a family office and a foundation with huge amounts of money that would favor the things that I wanted to see happen in the world, including ocean exploration, including things like childhood education and literacy. These are the things that I really love. I'm not allowed to do those non-frivolous things, but I would have that foundation. It would be the Hoeg Foundation or whatever. And that would be why it was frivolous, is it's an ego trip of some kind. I would employ family members that were otherwise unemployable, and they would work at the foundation offices, and that's what that money would do. Outside of that, the thought process that I had was that I would love to have essentially Downton Abbey in terms of service at my estate. I would love to have maid service.
That'd be awesome.
And cooks and
Mrs.
butlers.
Mrs. Patmore.
Mrs. Patmore.
All that good stuff. Now, the caveat I have for that is that this makes me intrinsically uncomfortable. I think it would be great for my wife. I think it would be a good thing for the running of the household. And I think it would be great to fund people's salaries and have them get that money in a way that was productive for them. But I just have to admit this about myself. I get a little uncomfortable at fancy restaurants or when I'm on the concierge floor of a hotel. Like, I just don't love that relationship. I don't love that separation.
Sure.
So that one might not be a workable answer for me, but I did think of it and I thought it would be a cool idea. When I was young, always wanted to have a chauffeur because unlike Dagan, I hate the act of driving. And I don't really need one as much anymore with ride apps and everything else.
Sure.
But that was what led to my thinking about service in general and having that kind
totally.
of
I would love that.
Availability at the house. That would be difficult to not be ostentatious with. But that might be there would be signs, Dustin.
Right.
In the vein of saving things like Hideo Kojima, Metal Gear, and Star Wars, I would probably look to create something like a publisher of, in all likelihood, video games or movies to bring to life some of my favorite stories. The one I use in my head to think about these is that I love Neil Stephenson as an author, and most of his stuff has not been made into any kind of satisfactory other medium. And I have a science fiction story that I really love of his called Seven Eves that I would love to see made into some kind of long form media content, whether it's a TV show or a movie. And I would love to be able to fund something that was bringing into the world stories that I personally, egotistically again, felt were more important to be seen in these ways than some of the other stuff that's being made, like, the recently announced Hershey's movie. And so I would love to see some of that directed more at things that I personally like. I know that those are still kind of investments and still things that are not exactly as frivolous as you'd like, Dustin, but that was as close as I could get.
No, I think that's great.
Great
Dude,
answer.
the pinball, which I was going to make a joke and you asked about storytelling. I was like, oh, one of the best mediums for storytelling is going to be pinball. Because I learned about that with games like Medieval Madness and stuff. It's like, wow, there's like kind of lore in these pinball machines that have the story that you play through. Someone is living your dream though, Hoeg, with pinball. I'm posting in our chat. There's a place I've been to in Ohio, and I just saw a video about this guy. He owns the largest pinball collection in the world, and you can just go and check this out. It's in Girard, Ohio, so pretty close to the border where I am. And this guy that has like over 1,000 pinball machines. There's few hundred on display that you can go play them. This place rules. It's probably a little bit of a trek for you, Hoeg, in Michigan, but if you're ever out this way, this place is called Pastimes Arcade. It's incredible.
As a Michigan Wolverine, it takes a good reason for me to cross the Ohio border, but that does look like a good reason.
Yeah.
This place looks cool.
Are you allowed to go there? You were allowed to go?
It's funny. I've trained my wife to immediately slow down and get below the speed limit when the Michigan plates cross the Ohio border. But yes, I'm allowed, but maybe not within the vicinity of Columbus. It really depends.
Cool.
But no, that looks like a great place to go visit. I love visiting these places. Ann Arbor, which of course houses the University of Michigan, has a number of kind of mechanical old arcade machine type museums, but that you can also play with. That I like a lot. But yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to explore thousands of pinball machines? What an afternoon.
Yeah.
This website actually has like a virtual tour. You can like go through it and look. It's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. You can kind of click through and see all the different, pinball. Totally extensive arcade too of video.
Yeah, I'm seeing this. I'm totally distracted by this. Oh yeah. Yeah, I would definitely want. I don't want too many arcade machines. That used to be a bigger fantasy of mine. And then I kind of, when I was at IGN, we had so many arcade machines and even like the Ultracade stuff with like hundreds of games on them that were like some were illegal, some were illegal. And I'm like, yeah, this is cool. And then it kind of wore its welcome. I'm like, yeah, what I really want is a Arkanoid cocktail table.
You really do want one of those.
Yeah, like badly. To the point, I've told the story about how I offered some dude in a bar that had it as like a table. I'm like, I'll give you like whatever you want for this. And he was originally down, and then I think he realized it was really valuable, and he was like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. Inflation boosted all that stuff. I've never been that interested in pinball, but it is kind of fascinating the more I think about it, where it's so cool because it's where analog meets the technological. It's like it's a video game, but there's so much physical stuff involved with how you have to play and the mechanics of how the thing works. It's pretty neat.
It's absolutely true. And yes, I have a pinball repair guy because I do have that knockout pinball machine in my basement. and they're constantly fixing rubber bands and things like that. But it's all fairly economical for one machine from the 60s. And so I would love to expand that collection. If I had hundreds of millions of dollars, I think I could pay for that warehouse that you showed me in Ohio.
Yep.
And so we could do something like that. It would be great. But yeah, pinball is awesome. And I agree with Dustin, actually, that it can tell cool stories. One of my favorite machines of all time, like on my dream list of things to buy, is one called Creature from the Black Lagoon, which of course is the name of the B movie from back in the day. But the premise of the pinball machine, and yes, pinball machines have premises, is that the game takes place at a drive-in with your girlfriend while you're trying to get concessions and other things out of the drive-in experience while watching Creature from the Black Lagoon. And from Toy Factor, it's got a hologram of a toy of the creature underneath the main play field. It's got all of this music digitized in pinball form from like the 60s. It's one of my favorite machines ever. And yes, it tells a story with the way that the combos work, with the way that you're working through intermission and the concession stand and everything else. I love it to death. Pinball. Don't sleep on it, folks, even though it's a dead industry.
Yeah, pinball is super cool. I lived with, bring him up sometimes, Scott Bromley, my old roommate in San Francisco. He was really into pinball. And he ended up, when he moved out of the apartment we lived in and he moved somewhere else in San Francisco, he ended up getting a pinball machine in his house, which was super cool, in his apartment, which was super cool. Dig, I'm looking at, I'm like totally distracted by the Pastimes arcade pictures because I love arcade machines. I didn't know that there was a machine for the Three Stooges. I hated that fucking game.
Is it Sunsoft?
Yeah, I think it's the one we hated.
Oh, I hated that game. It was awful.
Yeah,
game.
That game was like the worst thing. And I think you traded something for it too, which was like the worst. Like
I think you're right.
You traded like some game like Metroid or something and came home with fucking this. And I'm like, what are we doing? You know?
I remember that one mini game in there where you had to it was just spooning out alphabet soup. Remember?
Right. Yeah.
It was some kind of soup thing.
Yeah, it was stupid as fuck. You also traded something for Pilot Wings, which really pissed me off.
Oh, you're right.
I don't remember what that was. It was, I don't know what you did. I was like, oh my God.
I loved Pilot Wings.
Yeah, it was good, but I was like, come on, man.
Come on, that was Mode 7, baby.
I think the Three Stooges NES game might be my primary exposure to the Three Stooges as a brand. Because you're saving like an orphanage. You've got nuns.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I hated that goddamn game.
Oh, it was so bad. I don't want to say it was Sunsoft though. Could it have been?
I don't know if it was. I'll look it up.
I'm gonna look. Yeah, man. That was. You know what's funny about pinball though? Like it's so different than stand-up arcade machines and everything that came later. Like why wasn't there space for both? Why did pinball go the way of the dodo? It was kind of unnecessary.
I think it was a specialist mechanical field. And so I think Williams was the last in the pinball production chain, and they dropped it when it just wasn't competing with their video machines.
Yeah, makes sense.
Incredible Technologies is the company that did.
Okay, so it wasn't a Sunsoft game. Makes sense because Sunsoft was a good developer.
Yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, it does seem like something they would do though because it's a license, a weird license.
Yeah. The game was abysmal. That's a great shout because I forgot all about it.
I've never forgotten that game.
And I don't own it. I don't have it.
Oh, I think we got rid of it at some point. I mean, it wouldn't be
graphics in my head.
Yeah, totally in my head.
So, all right. Yeah. So, shout out to this place that you found,
dude. It's cool. I need to go back because I was a few years ago. We went on the way home from Too Many Games.
Are the machines? Did you say them? Are the machines on free play or do you get tokens or something?
Free play. Okay. Yeah, you just pay to get in, and then you can play whatever.
That's cool.
It's awesome. And one thing I really appreciate, it's tough with arcade. You know, you're dealing with old arcade units. Is that certain places like barcades will, when the CRT dies, put in an LCD, some kind of flat screen in it. And dude, when they do that, I don't even want to look at it. Like, I don't want to touch it. I can't stand that shit. And this place, very dedicated to having CRTs in the machines themselves. I'm sure it costs them a lot of money to do that, but it's required for the authenticity of it.
There's a YouTuber I bring up sometimes, 8-bit guy who I really love. He's like he's this nerdy dude from Texas. I love him, and he has really, it's like so authentic, his intro music.
I gotta look him up. I don't know if I know him.
Anyway, he has this whole thing, and he just did a really great video actually on like Apple II clones, which I thought was really awesome. But he opened this thing in Bedford, Texas, Time Rift Arcade, which is like his own arcade with a bunch of machines that he invested in, I guess his YouTube money and stuff, with his brother and some friends. And they opened up a whole separate channel that's all about taking care of the machines.
Love that.
And I fell down the rabbit hole, and there is some a lot of it's old arcade stuff and CRT stuff, but some of it is pinball related too. And it's pretty
cool.
And there is a whole nother channel I found that is pinball repair. And I did watch a lot of that, and that's very fine work, like really complicated.
Technical.
Yeah. It's like dudes that you have to figure out if you don't have Hoeg knows all this, I'm sure, but if you like don't have the blueprint of the board, you have to kind of manually figure out what every circuit does. Oof. And then go through and test all of the circuits, and it breaks random things and it breaks the logic of the machines. And it's pretty cool because a lot of it is pre microprocessor. So that's not a thing in the arcade. All of it is microprocessors. So if you open mine up, it looks like the complete spaghetti of wires that you think of when you think of like old videos from NASA. Yeah. It's all on off switches. I mean, it's really amazing when you think about it. It's crazy. It's so cool. So I think if people out there, you guys might be interested in, especially the Time Rift Arcade stuff, it's a really cool channel because it's all about the technical, like
that's
how
cool.
Things break and why they break and all the rest.
I love the preservation angle too. It's so important that people are keeping this stuff alive. What fascinates me is not just the people that could do the work, but the companies that provide the stuff. Like if you need new rubber bands or if you need balls or bumpers, like that stuff still must be manufactured. Yeah, there's little cottage industries that pop up probably for these different places, which is awesome. I mean, that's fucking capitalism, baby. I love that. People that can do fine tooling or like random runs of things and sell. I see it on these videos of people repairing their PCs where it's like, yeah, you can go buy like 4K RAM things if you want. Like, it's hysterical. Like, why would you ever do that? And it's like more expensive than buying, 100 megs of RAM for a newer 90s computer and so on and so forth, because those are more common. That's fascinating. So that's really fascinating. There is a guy, Kyle may remember this, in my area, Southampton, Pennsylvania, called TNT Amusements. And they have an actual arcade where they have birthday parties and everything, but they buy, sell, and trade arcade and pinball. And they're heavily known, like, I think not only nationally, like globally, for repairing everything. And the guy used to have infomercials that went all the way up the Northeast, like to New England. That's right. Right? That's how we saw him initially. Yeah, that's right. What was that guy's name? I forgot his name, but the company name is TNT Amusements. Because I think he finally passed. So it's his son's now. I totally forgot about this. Yeah. And YouTube, they have a YouTube channel with all the infomercials. They were like late night infomercials where they would like bring a pinball machine up to the roof of the warehouse and push it off. Like stuff like ridiculous things like that. And the infomercials spanned hours. Like they were full on cheesy. Yeah, I don't know if this dude was just independently wealthy and was just fucking around and had this company. What it seemed like. Yeah, it was weird. Yeah. I finally ended up. He was already answering Dustin's question. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, brilliant shit.
Sorry, Dick, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. I was just thinking, I finally ended up over there because he's in like an industrial park. It's really weird. You would never even know it's there. But he hosts kids' birthday parties. But the building's not really fit for that. Like it's almost even a little dangerous. But one of Graydon's friends, when they were younger, had a birthday party there. And so I got to see it in the flesh. And he and his wife were there working. I think she was hosting the birthday party and he was futzing around doing whatever he was doing behind the scenes. And I was so starstruck by him that I couldn't say hi to him. Like I was just like, I can't, because I had grown up with the infomercials. Yeah, that's crazy. I haven't thought of these in a long time. But now he's gone.
R.I.P. in peace.
R.I.P. in peace.
I gotta look that guy up.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for those answers. Most of you did pretty well. Some of you, Dave, talked about your family.
That was too
generous. You couldn't hold back on the generosity aspect. You kind of made me look like I'm a selfish dick because I only had selfish answers, and that's that's fine.
I am kidnapping somebody, however.
That is true. Okay, yeah. That's all right. Fair enough. But good answers all around.
Got a little dark, in fact.
Yeah.
Oh, Bill Watterson's in my dungeon. It'd be really crazy if he heard about this. Like, that's how Bill Watterson found out about Dagan. Like, that's my idol. Like, you don't understand. Yeah. I have a lot of idols, but that's like my idol. You know, like that's the one guy I would boil it down to. If he hears about it this way, I kind of like it. I'm here for it.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Now, so how do we want to play it? Because we've gone for a little over 3 hours. Do we want to call it, or do we want to do a lightning round?
I'm okay with calling it if you guys are. That's totally fine. I could bring this topic next week.
Okay. Yeah. So let's call it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, my friends. Well, listen, we'll sunset this bad boy. We'll bring it home. I'll go around for goodbyes. We're heading into the weekend. It was nice to be back. It's funny, man. You guys may know about this. Colin certainly does. 5 days ago, Colin and I recorded a 7-hour long podcast. And let me tell you something. I'm talking to podcast veterans here, but 7 hours, a 7-hour podcast will change a man. I'm different now.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure it's good.
Yeah. I the honest truth is that I went even quick because I like towards the end, because I knew it was like wearing.
You definitely picked up the pace.
Yeah. Like, well, because I took so many notes and I'm like, yeah, I guess I didn't realize that it was just going to make it this long, but which I didn't.
Went beat for beat through a pretty long game.
Yeah. But I must say, Dig, and I don't know if you've seen the reaction to it on Patreon, but like the show is fucking killing. People are like,
oh, good.
Mega into it.
Oh, good.
Other than telling us over and over again that we missed some really obvious story beat.
Dude, that
but I don't. But I gotta say, like in my own mind, I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But
we won't say it.
But it's like I don't know how I was supposed to know that. But maybe I was just missing it because I was typing things and I don't remember this. You know, so it's like okay.
Yeah. We missed an egregious thing.
I don't know if it's that egregious. Like, is it that egregious? Is it like worth? Oh my god! All right,
it's something, and we don't want to spoil it, but it's something that would have made the game even better for me had I known in the moment.
Right. I just didn't notice. Dustin, do you know what we're talking about?
I think I saw some comments, but honestly, I don't even really remember that part of the game.
Yeah, I wonder. Like, it would be interesting to know how egregious it really is. Like, is he's right in the. Okay. Yeah. Anyway,
real quick on your 7-hour Last of Us show. When I last recorded with Hoeg, it was to do the Split Fiction spoiler cast, and I said, "Don't worry, guys. The KCD2 podcast is coming. I'm going to try to get 6 hours out of the team on it." Okay. I said that as a joke because I was like, "Who would talk about a game for 6 hours?" But then, lo and behold, you guys went and did it. So now,
and people
who's on that? Lockmort, Brad, Cog.
And Micah.
We got to get 8 hours. We got to up the ante.
Yeah, I'm really glad that people liked it. I was like, are people going to think this is insane? Because it was a lot of. It was what we said on Sacred Symbols. I was like, this is a lot of work to do it like this.
It's a lot of work.
Like I was really studying the shit out of the game and really like stopping. It was almost like writing a guide back in the day for it. But you're not doing like you're not doing the gameplay beats. You're doing like the story beats instead. It's like the exact opposite in some sense. And you're delivering.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But it was a lot. And I was like, man, I wonder if this is just a waste of time. And then a lot of people are like, this is kind of what I always wanted. And so that's what I was going to say, Dave. Like, we should just keep doing this for more games. You know, it'll be. That. I don't think it would have to be that long because it's such an intensive game. But yeah, these longer.
You could have a narrative breakdown show.
Yeah, it's like it really was a beat by beat breakdown of everything in the game. So yeah, we'll do that.
It's a game worthy of fine editing still.
Oh my god,
that would have been my breakdown there.
Yeah,
that could kill a man. That could literally kill a man.
Yeah.
No, obviously. And you know what? It's a game. I'm glad we did it because it was worth a deep dive. And it's not like we were purposely cutting our cloth to go that long. It was organic. Like it's like anytime we podcast, like this didn't feel like 3.5 hours. It's just the time goes fast. You're having an organic conversation. You're into it. And yeah, that one, I mean, once you go past a certain point, you realize it's getting long, but you're still having an authentic discussion about something. And what game could be bad? I mean, I'm just happy that I got a chance to play it. You know, a 5-year-old game is relatively new for me. So, usually I miss out on these things for much longer periods. So it was nice. I'm glad people like it. That's the ultimate payoff. But that's the other thing too, when people bring that up, and everybody's brought it up politely. It's like, can you just pay attention to the other 6 hours and 58 minutes of the conversation? Like, there's other stuff in there, besides the egregious thing that we missed. And that was my only regret, is that, like, wow, how did I realize that in the game? Is like, but it's also exemplary it's a perfect example of what the game does, which is give you those details, those mind-blowing details. It's like, oh shit, so I want to go back and play it again to see it, actually, because I didn't play New Game Plus yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna play my New Game Plus just to get the platinum and be done.
So I'm glad people dug it. Kyle, I'm sticking with you because go around for goodbyes heading into the weekend. No podcast this weekend. No 7-hour podcast.
No 7-hour podcast this weekend. Yeah, I'm just gonna be hanging out. I have a bunch of just random things to do, but I have like a lot of Lilimo stuff that I need to catch up on, and that's probably what I'll be dedicating this weekend to work wise. And then I'm just kind of in wait mode, anticipating Indiana Jones on PS5, but that's in 6 days. So and also Lunar comes out that same day for PS5, so that'll be awesome. So
yes,
yeah, I'm excited about it too. Very deeply, I was saying this on Sacred, deeply nostalgic games for me. So
Lunar is probably my favorite tropey JRPG.
It was awesome. I've said it a million times, but it's just like it was the special edition, the anime kind of cutscenes. It was like really, really. I had like this shitty Toshiba laptop I bought on eBay that ran Windows 3.1, and I used it to like write guides, and then I would transfer it on a floppy disk to like the computer downstairs. This was before I had a computer in my own room later on, and I had the Lunar Special Edition came with stickers, and I had them all over that laptop. And
I need them to bring back the Sega CD intro song. That's what I'm asking for. You got to bring that back.
Yeah, the Sega CD versions I never even played. I was aware of them because they were like available to rent in Blockbuster and stuff, and they looked cool, but I didn't really understand what they were. And then when Working Designs, God bless them, they were awesome. So.
Best.
So yeah, I'll just be hanging out. Thanks for having me, and it was good to be here with you guys, and good to be back on the show. And hope everyone is well out there. Hope everyone's staying sane.
Yeah, nice to have you back on the show. We missed you last week, but Micah stood in for you. Micah's a hoot.
Yeah, she is. That's one word for her.
She's a hoot.
That's one word. That's one way to put it. She's something.
Everybody here knows.
Yeah.
Hoeg, it was good having you. It was always great having you on the shows.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun in this conversation. So pinball, storytelling, everything in between. I am also excited about the release of Lunar. The last couple of days have featured the launch of first-person puzzle games, which is one of my favorite genre. I want to play more Blueprints. I want to play more of the Talos Reawakened remaster of the original Talos Principle game. It's one of my favorite puzzle games.
Yeah, I saw those trophies pop up. So yeah, that's out now, I guess.
Folks, if you love Portal, you love that design of like one-room puzzles and moving forward, Talos is actually my favorite implementation of this. And its remaster is just freaking gorgeous. So check it out if you're at all interested. Absolutely love this series of games. And I highly recommend it if you like puzzle solving in first person at all. So I'm going to be playing those. I'm looking forward to Lunar. I'm looking forward to Expedition 33. And in between all of that stuff, I'll probably be making more videos at some point. We've got crazy stuff at Ubisoft, crazy stuff at Nintendo, crazy stuff at the American government, all of which I cover in Hangouts and Headlines and Virtual Legality. So if you're interested in any of that, check me out on my neck of the woods in YouTube at Hoeg Law.
There you go. You better do it too. I'm going to be checking. Checking twice.
Please do check. I have not made as many videos as I would have liked in the last month, as it turns out. Getting busy at the law firm.
Good.
And getting busy on finances and other things that come around in April of every year is a lot.
The worst.
Is a lot. So I mean to get back to more content creation.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we're only a few days away from everyone having a file. I didn't even realize that.
Forgot all about that. Yep. Oh my God. You just brought it down a notch.
Sorry.
No, it's I needed the reminder. Dust, what do you think, my friend, going into the weekend? It's always good seeing you. We have to plan for June, obviously.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely some busy work type stuff I got to take care of, like taxes, and I got to figure out some travel arrangements for June. So some of that stuff. But as far as entertainment, I'm going to be along there with Hoeg playing Blueprints. Holly and I played this a lot last night. We're both very invested. I'm feeling wildly mixed on it. It has a lot of highs. Some of this RNG stuff, though, is making me pull my hair out.
Dustin, if I can be 100% honest on this, I know it's the highest rated game of the year as it stands right now.
Yeah.
It does not immediately grab you. It doesn't. No. It didn't for me. It's got a lot of board game elements, which are things that I like in the way that it kind of develops the house, if you're familiar with the Betrayal series. And I love the rogue-like ability to put strategy around the meta of the building the house. But its actual puzzles, the things that you're solving, have not engaged with me just yet.
Yeah.
But I'm holding out because my view on this is that many people are unlikely to be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. The thing that I'm at the point where for Holly and I, we've really gotten the strategy down, and we had such an amazing run last night, and everything, like our strategy was good. Things was going well. And then at the end, we just got completely fucked because of a bad roll. And I was like, you know what? That's not fun. I personally fucking hate that.
It's absolutely built that way to just be like, nope, not this one.
Nope, this isn't the run. Even though your strategy was on point, everything's great. It's just like this one thing. I'm like, well, I'm still invested. I'm going to keep playing it. And I do want to check out Talos Principle really bad. I forgot that came out. So I may be purchasing that. $40. Not bad. Yeah, I'll probably pick that up too.
Yeah, and I think it's cheaper if you have a copy of either Talos or Talos 2 on whatever you're trying to buy it on. But yeah, I actually had an interaction with one of the people at Raw Fury who brought over Blueprints, where I had said Blueprints was actually it was a little bit rougher for me to get into than I had hoped, primarily because Talos came out on the same day. Mm-hmm. And I love that game so much. I love the puzzles in that game, and then just having a ridiculous graphical upgrade. And I would keep trying. I would play both of them. And I was just kept bouncing off of Blueprints because I wanted to play more Talos. And that happens. But the gentleman at Raw Fury was fantastic. I said, no disparagement intended. This is just the situation I'm in. He said he loves Talos too. I highly recommend it. I love the guys at Raw Fury. They've always been very nice to me and supported the channel when I analyzed their publishing agreement. Raw Fury is a publisher that decided to publicize the template agreement that they enter into with the developers that work for them. And I thought that was a great opportunity to kind of dive into what a publishing agreement looks like. So I did a whole video series on it.
That's cool.
And then, like so many things on YouTube or elsewise on social media, you get that heart palpitation when the subject of your videos contacts you and says, Rick, can we talk? It's like, sure. I hope a lawsuit isn't pending and you're not angry, but they were great the whole way and they continue to be great now.
Oh,
so
good.
I love it when I get to have those interactions online.
Oh my gosh. Well, my friends, I got two things. I got a negative and a positive going into the weekend. Positive, on 2 days from now, we're 2 days out from The Last of Us season 2 on Max. Looking forward to it. But you know what I'm noticing in the last couple of days? Bella Ramsey's getting a lot of hate. All of a sudden, it's not the first season. Like, now you guys are weighing in on the casting. It's weird. You know, I understand it's not the Ellie from the game, but Colin and I talked about this on the podcast, on the game podcast last weekend. She's a great actress. She's a Shakespearean level actress. Lady Mormont from Game of Thrones, yes, but just, you know, she's got the chops. I think, yeah, the physicality to look is different. Nobody's more entrenched in the game. I'm fresh out of the game. I understand. Joel, Ellie, these are different. Pedro, Bella, but I don't know. Let's see how it goes. My biggest concern is, and we're going to have this conversation more. You know, there'll be more on this, but 7 episodes, really? That's a lot to squeeze in. First season was 9. You got to save the rest of the game. You got to save the rest of the game for season 3. I think that's true.
Oh, definitely. They're not going to get. They're not going to get ahead of the games.
Like, they can't.
No.
I'm looking forward to it though.
I do think the internet is a place of hate, and so it's easy to hate on something like the pictures of Bella Ramsey in this role, because I think the hope, if you're being generous, you don't mind in season 1 if you're a reasonable person, because Ellie 1 is a younger kind of character.
Yeah.
And then the hope is that you get aged up and that the cinematography and the way that it's filmed makes her look like Ellie 2 more. And I don't think that's coming across in the photos, but I don't know that it always does come across in the photos. I will wait to see how it actually operates in film, on screen. But I think the people that are hating early look at the photos and say, I can kind of make that work in my head for Ellie 1, but it doesn't look like Ellie 2.
I think you make a really good point there. I think that's true. Yeah, the game 2, Ellie is like a young woman, and Bella Ramsey looks young, too young.
She looks really young for Ellie 2.
She does.
Absolutely.
She definitely does. And I know there's a lot of jump arounds, as far as timeline goes, but contemporary in-game Last of Us 2, yeah, you make a good point. But I'm looking forward to it, though. I want to see. I'm more concerned with the length. We got 2 less episodes than the first season. And I don't feel like it was artificially squeezed, though, in the first season. But now we're dealing with a whole different thing, set of circumstances. And
it honestly wouldn't surprise me if they don't go to Seattle in season 2. It honestly wouldn't surprise me.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, I'm open to that. That's the upside of the weekend. The downside is I'm testing for a job. Animator, the only job where you still have to test after 28 years of doing it as a professional. Think about that. It's like fucking ridiculous. I'm an accountant and I go to a different firm. I don't test for the job. Look at the fucking resume. I mean, just look. I was saying this to Helene, venting my frustration, right? Look at how many times I've worked for Nickelodeon alone. Would I have gone back and forth to Nickelodeon 6 times if I wasn't good at what I do? Yeah. Right? It's like, come on.
All right. Well,
and not even a paid test this time. Helene's like, why are you doing it? I'm like, where are the other opportunities? What am I going to do?
I will say, Dagan, that most states would require me to take the bar again to practice law there.
Okay.
And I would have to pay for the privilege. So you might be beating me.
Yeah, but what about if you stayed in state?
I'd be good.
Okay.
I could work at another location.
All right.
They don't have any good way to test my legal acumen. And that goes for companies and clients. One of the big problems I have with the product offering that I make is that for the most part, I could make the best darn contract in the history of the world. The client isn't necessarily going to know the difference.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. Yeah. That's a good point. You guys had to pass a bar too. Like there's nothing like that. The cost of entry for animation is just being good enough to get the first job. Then it's a domino effect. Like our brains are in our hands. We're morons. I'm just going to say we're morons and we're lucky to be, some of us don't even have college or some of us don't even have high school education. So, there's that.
Megan, but I would also say that being a barred attorney is no promise of intelligence.
That's interesting. How do you do it? Have we talked about this before? I feel like we have.
I will dive into legal practice on some other show.
All right.
Or offline, I promise.
That's fair. I'll take you up on that. All right, my friends. Well, let's work on getting out of here. We'll just do a little housekeeping and then we're out. That's our time. Listen, we're at the over 3.5 hour mark. That's fine. Patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access. As always, thanks for listening to the shows. We love having you. Laststandmedia.store has the merch for Hoeg, Dust, and the Colster. I'm Dagster Moriarty saying thank you so much for joining us, as always. You're appreciated. We love you. Tune in next week. The weeks go quick. I always say that, but it's true. We'll be here again in no frames, doing it all over again for you guys. You lucky son of a bitches. Now go listen to your second favorite podcast and get out. Peace.
Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.